I'd like to call a special meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. It is 6:02 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Jeff Baker, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
The next item on the agenda is citizens' address. Was there any citizen address items relative to the public discussion of the policy book?
No, sir.
Okay. And the next item would be the policy book discussion.
Very good. And we're waiting for Jeff Weckbach. Hey, Chief, could you call Jeff Weckbach in? Okay. Gentlemen, for the past few meetings, we have been discussing getting way down in the weeds on policy so that we can get your input, make it so in the policy book, and bring it back to you for ratification at a future meeting, the adoption. So with that, I think we can pick up where we've left off at the previous meeting. And if Mr. Weckbach is ready, we can go ahead and do that.
Thank you, Board. So where we picked off last time is Section 1.14 Employee Discipline Policy. This question is whether or not we should consider fraud and listed explicitly as a level 1 offense. As we were kind of reviewing the different level 1 offenses under our discipline policy, we realized that fraud wasn't there, so we thought it might make sense, but wanted to get your input on that.
Does fraud in terms of as it's legally defined by?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it should.
And I do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Comment, Raj?
I'm also joining that.
All right. If we keep going at this pace, we'll be done at 5 or 6:30, right?
Yeah.
So the next one deals with our drug and alcohol-free workplace. As we've continued to scour best practices out there, we recognize that ours doesn't necessarily require an employee to disclose to their supervisor if they have a prescription drug that might affect their ability to operate vehicles or perform their day-to-day. And so the question is, should we require our employees to do that, or should it be an after the fact, after an incident occurs, that someone is required to inform their supervisor of that situation?
I think asking people the prescription drug is the law, the Medical Privacy Act. What kind of prescription they're taking, is that kind of violation? The second thing, and if there's a behavior, it's different. If the supervisors or fellow employee notice certain type of very noticeable behavior, very different behavior at that time, supervisor can take him to the office, addresses the question we're talking about, if he's on medication or not. There's a Privacy Act, what is called the Medical Privacy Act. We cannot, yes.
I tend to agree with Raj. I think it's a little bit invasive to ask what prescriptions people are on. I mean, impaired their abilities is kind of a nebulous. I mean, I think it's obviously, subjective in some way. What did you run into when you looked at other?
There were just other communities that basically stated, so say for some reason you're on a controlled substance per your doctor, it required that you told your supervisor so that then your supervisor either could make accommodations or ensure that you're not doing something that substance that you're legally allowed to be on could affect your job. So just a thought and a suggestion for the board to consider, but if the desire is to not have it because of the evasiveness, I totally get that argument too.
And what about our? Go ahead, Raj.
There is mostly narcotic prescription, correct?
Well, it could be any prescription that impairs your ability to do your job.
So say, for example, you have you're on a prescription that makes you drowsy, and the prescription label says, do not operate machinery or a car. That would be an example of, if your job required you to drive a dump truck, and you're on this medication, should you have to report that to your supervisor?
I think they should.
And I would say that in that situation, that should happen also.
Very good.
Because, well, and then, so let's follow that through for a minute, Jeff Mills, and let's say that one of our people that drives a piece of our insured equipment says, I'm on a painkiller today for an injury I had, and they would go out and have an accident and they had not told us, where would that leave us with liability? I guess that's more of a law director question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
At this time, I would think, per our union contracts, what is the language in there regarding that? Is there any?
I don't believe that there is a notice requirement. I don't believe there is in the CBA.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I would say I would work on some type of disclosure requirement.
Okay.
If it's going to affect your ability to do your job, I wouldn't want someone to get hurt.
Jeff, the EEOC has a three-part test. One is that is the employee in a position that affects public safety? Two, if he is in that position that affects public safety, is the nature of the medication required to be reported must be one that affects the employee's ability to perform their essential functions, resulting in a direct threat. So I think it would apply if you wanted to do it legally. It probably should be limited to people that are in the safety services, driving with a CGL or police or fire, and specifically with respect to prescriptions that affect the essential ability to do the job. Once the employer has that information, they have an obligation to keep it all private. So you're putting a couple layers of potential liability on there. But I think if you have people that are driving for a living that are involved in, safety services such as that, you may have some liability if it turns out they're on some kind of prescription drugs and that affect their ability to perform the essential functions of their job, and you haven't checked on that.
Is it the police department has in the contract, they have their clause, right?
Well, I think they have random drug testing, don't they, Jeff? And then post-accident testing. I don't know that they have anything about prescriptions, but I don't remember that for sure.
It's not in the CBA, I don't believe, but there is a policy in the police department that you do have to notify the chief if you're on a medication that could affect your ability to do the job. But this, so including it in the township-wide policy book would be additional. So it sounds to me like maybe the board is leaning towards if you're in public safety or if your job could affect public safety, then there should be a disclosure.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Yeah.
Okay, the next bullet point is more of a clarification that we'd like to add, which is that abuse of a prescription drug is prohibited. So, just trying to button up any potential legal loopholes that somebody might make.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree also. I would agree. On the previous thing, Jeff, Park, I like that idea of, people do the safety type of work, they should disclose if any medication they're taking will hinder their ability to function for safety for themselves or safety of the others. So it's good. Good to go.
All right, so the next one is section 1.17, which deals with the dangerous weapon policy. The way that it's currently drafted reflected old state law, which did not let anyone have a dangerous weapon, even in a closed and locked trunk. So the question is, now that state law has changed, do we want to update our policy to follow state law again?
Yes.
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 Okay. The next item was actually brought up by an outgoing.
Excuse me, Jeff. You want to see what like to make a change on that policy? Carrie Council, you want to do it now? We can do it.
Well, so the idea is that I will package everything that we're talking about into a new updated policy book, and I'll do like I have been doing, where I include drafts of the old policies that now have the changes marked, so everybody will be able to see what those changes are.
Good, good job.
So the next item came up from a former employee who I thought had a great idea that if an employee doesn't give us a certain number of weeks of notification before they leave, that we might consider them as leaving not in good standing. So that way, if somebody does an HR background check and they ask, hey, did they leave on good terms with the township? That would be an easy red flag to say, well, no, they, gave us 1 day notice or 3 hours notice or something to that effect. So just something for you all to consider whether or not we wanted to include that in our updated book.
I would agree with that. Update that.
I know 2 weeks is a standard that most people
2
use.
weeks.
That would you guys?
That's very courtesy. Unless there is a reason, very,
Sure.
it has to be authentic reason to why they did that. It put the township in a jeopardy, to replace a person catches off guard.
Of course, if you start doing that, you always run into the problem that if somebody doesn't get a job from the next employer, they may sue you for defamation.
That was going to be my question was, how would that affect us if somebody gave us 1 day's notice and the new employer turned around and said, did they leave in good standing? What would your answer be?
But if we had this policy, it would be no. And I think then Larry's comment is a very valid comment, and that's something that we've got to weigh. And if that makes more sense not to include it, then I would say we don't include it.
But if it's true, is it defamatory?
Well, it depends. It's not defamatory if it's true, but I bet you it's going to turn out that someone else will have left without the requisite notice, and somebody will have said that they left in good standing. It seems like something that gums up, makes your life difficult. The guy's leaving, or the employee's leaving anyway. I mean, why would you care about telling the next employer that they weren't in good standing if in fact they were up until the time they left? They might have had to leave because their wife was leaving town. I mean, you don't want to, they may have had to leave because of a sickness or a death in the family. You don't want to have to go through each time somebody leaves, figuring all that out.
Well, that's true, but if it was somebody who left 2 years ago, got another job, and then they were moving on to their next job after that, and the new employer went back and said, hey, you worked for Colerain Township in 18 and 19, and contacted Colerain Township, would it be okay to say, yeah, when they left here, they didn't come in one day and called and said they quit or something like that? Would we be allowed to say that? And that would kind of get away from protecting them, helping them get their next job. If somebody came and looked for something archival, would we be allowed to say they didn't leave in good standing, or would we just say, yes, they left in good standing, except he called up in the morning and quit? You know what I mean? No?
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone, to mail in the last week and a half because they need to hit a benchmark or something too. I think this question is probably as old as employment. I mean, what do you say and what can you say? And yeah, we can defend ourselves in a lawsuit, but guess what? The attorney still costs money when you're defending yourself. And I tend to be kind of leave that discretion to you guys as administrators when someone calls and says, what kind of recommendation would you give this employee? There are ways of recommending with gusto and saying, yes, they worked here. Yes, they appeared for a shift daily. I mean, there's ways that you can do that as well. I guess my concern is the legal thing. And Larry brought up the point, maybe I work here and, my child dies or my parents die. I'm not giving you 3 weeks. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about maybe burying my kid or somebody.
Well, that would fall on, that wouldn't be counted as a leaving on bad terms if you had a family situation.
But once you start that kind of downhill, where do you turn it off then? My kid is in the hospital. Well, that's not good enough. I mean, that gets into some.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I see Larry's point also. Larry, I do have a question related to that. In my life in the private industry world, I have, when checking on reviews from, if we were going to hire someone or not, I would always ask the question, would you rehire this person? And sometimes I got silence, and sometimes they said definitely yes. But if someone was to ask us, would you rehire this person? If that was part of our checking on a potential employee, how would we answer that? You
Well,
might not.
my advice, generally speaking, is when you give an employee a reference to a future employer, you say, this person worked for Colerain Township from 1914 to 1920. These were the positions he had, and he left voluntarily. I would normally not recommend going much beyond that. And whether you would rehire this person is a very common question that people ask. And you have your choice of answering it truthfully or just not answering it. If you only give the same information in response to any reference, they can come in and look at the personnel file because it's a public record. And if you just say the dates they were employed, the position they held, and that they left voluntarily, that would be, as a lawyer and the law director, that would be my preference. But obviously, you guys can decide, if that's the way you want to go. You have a little bit more danger of liability if you start giving information out, especially, I would never rehire this person or something like that. But to me, that doesn't sound like defamation. You're just saying I wouldn't rehire them. But the chance, it just raises the chance that somebody might sue you in the future.
I totally agree with Larry. I think you hit it right on the nail, and that is excellent comment. Just left voluntarily, that gives a multiple questions that the guy who's going to hire can ask the person why you left and all of that. So we are off the hook, and we did our part. We told them you left. No, we didn't fire him. He just left. I think we go with the recommendation of Larry.
So the next question, in a similar vein, not exactly the same thing, is when someone is leaving, should we allow them to be able to use any of their vacation time or things of that nature to extend their time? So let's say the last date of employment, for all intents and purposes, is June 1st, but they say, well, can I use a week of vacation so that, from June 2nd through June 8th or whatever that might be? And should we allow that, or should we just say no at that point? Or not even address it at all and leave the discretion to the department head?
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Dan. Dan, you want to say something?
Employee has accumulated vacation, would we be, and it was in excess of the amount that you're allowed to bank, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so a lot of the times what I think happens is an employee is about to leave. They look at their vacation bank, say, well, I only get a payout for this amount. I have more than that. Would they allow me to use some of that time? And then in theory, what it does is it gets them a bigger payout at the end of the day.
Jeff, you talk about after, when they're ready to leave, they give the written notice, hey, I'm going to leave, but I want to take written. If it's written notice, then the policy applies that how many books, vacation time, how many vacation time he has in the book, pay off, then excess vacation time is up to the head of the department. Or you want to make like a policy, you can't have it, right?
Well, it doesn't necessarily matter to me which direction we go. Certainly, if it's written down as a policy that provides some clear guidance, not only to ourselves, but to employees that, hey, don't even bother asking, because it says pretty clear as day in our book that you're not allowed to do that.
Well, why would you want to give someone who's leaving vacation time? I mean, you get a payout for a certain amount of hours that they're banked. If they tell you they don't want to work for you anymore, why would you want to say, oh, well, why don't you go to Tahiti? We'll pay you for that.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Larry. And I guess what we're asking is if we just put it in the book, then it just makes it clear as day that that's the policy prerogative of both the board and what administration is going to do in terms of following policy.
As far as what's legal, I'd have to ask Larry to review that, because if you're allowed to bank 4 weeks and somebody has 6 weeks, and that employee might take 2 weeks vacation, come back for 1 day, and then give us 2 weeks notice, and that way he would have used up all of his vacation except for what he knew he was going to get paid out. So I would probably ask Larry to look at that, but I don't see how we could do that.
Yeah, because in the end, we're paying them regardless, right? So we're paying them as a payout of their vacation time, or if they take terminal leave. Like that's one of the things that I've seen folks do is take terminal leave. So instead of getting a payout of a big paycheck, a big chunk, they'll just take the rest of their vacation and say my end date is at the end of this vacation date. So
And
you're getting paid either way.
But the difference is if they put their end date at the end of their vacation, they're still on our benefits
Yes.
potentially. And
That's
so
right.
then we're still incurring that liability while they're on payroll.
Yes.
I don't know how you legally stop somebody from doing that.
I think you can. I think you can limit the payout.
I'd ask Larry to come back to the board with what would be legal in that situation. I don't know how you could take somebody's, I mean, I don't like it either. I think if you're going to leave, you should say, thank you for the opportunity I've had here. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. But I don't know how you would stop somebody from using their vacation that they had correctly accumulated.
Well, we can work with Larry and see if we can come up with something. And if not, then it's a
I
moot
would
point.
come up with something that you think is legal.
Sure.
All right. The next question is a cyber policy question. This is something that I saw as a best practice. It may not be something that we want to do just because it would be very hard to enforce. But sometimes having it in there is what creates this onus where people don't do it. And the question is, do we want to restrict employees from using their personal passwords on township specific items? So basically what we'd be telling you is employee Mills, don't use your Gmail password as your Colerain Township email password to avoid the chance that if somebody hacked into Gmail and got your password, then they wouldn't automatically be able to hack into your Colerain email. Again, I don't know how this would be enforced necessarily, but it's just whether or not we want to put this out there in the off chance that something did happen, we would have a policy to look at and say, hey, we said don't do this and you did this.
So from a practical point of view, what is it with our email here? Every 8 weeks, we need to put in a new password or something? Every quarter. I mean, I use the same, it's up to probably 6 or 8 passwords for various things now, and I just rotate them through. Passwords have gotten so complicated.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, they give you a security check. I mean, I don't know. To me, but I'm not a computer guy. I didn't really even understand it till you explained it to me, what you're talking about. I don't. I'd have to be honest with you. I'd have to change my Colerain password.
Sure, and that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we wanted to ask, is this something that we even want to throw on there? It was just a best practice that we saw that we'd bring forward.
I don't think it's enforceable, so I would probably just encourage employees to, in the interest of protecting our network, to try to have different passwords for your township account and any personal accounts.
Okay.
But I just don't know how you would enforce it, because how would you know that
Yeah, the only way you'd enforce it is if an issue came up and it was found out that like your Target shopping account password got hacked, and then that person used that.
That's a
to
good
enter.
point too.
So
Not that you'd ever be able to figure that out.
not necessarily. Sometimes though, people don't necessarily keep things like that to themselves, and then they share to a coworker, hey, well, yeah, my password got out here and now somebody hacked in here. I mean, so.
Is it something you would prefer to have in there? Because you're here every day and you see it more, and I
It's
guess
just,
we've run across it.
it hasn't been something that we've run across here. It was a best practice that we saw out in the zeitgeist around cybersecurity policies. Again, so, you know, we see best practices and we're going to bring them forward for your all's consideration. That doesn't necessarily mean that it makes sense for Colerain, because we want to make sure that this policy book is the Colerain way.
Did you check with the Ohio plan about that, Jeff? They have a cyber policy.
Yeah.
That's pretty robust, and they may have a position on that.
That's a good question. I haven't checked with them, but we certainly can.
I know that there have been attacks on political subdivisions in this area, where they have attacked the computer networks and then tried to make the political subdivisions pay a ransom. And the Ohio plan has experience with that too.
Well, and in that, figure out how we can do it legally and enforceably,
Okay.
because I still don't know how we would enforce it, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I don't-
really, what Larry says is a problem, so I'd say come back to us with a way that you think that would work.
I don't think it's so much a matter of can you enforce it as it is to get the information to your employees that you don't want them to do that. That might help you with the insurance company.
What are the odds everybody's going to guess my password is Elder Panthers?
Okay. All right.
Have Larry develop that.
That's so that's helpful guidance. So we'll check with the Ohio plan and then maybe come back with some language around that.
Then that's probably the best thing is see what the insurance company says.
Yes. Okay, so moving on, the next policy is our telecommunication policy, which also deals with our cell stipends. There are 2 items there that we wanted to address in conversations with Chief Mark Denny. He recommended that the missing person scribe is maybe more of a $35 level. So we're throwing that out as an option. And then right now, we currently don't list the code enforcement specialist, probably because that position was created after the policy book was adopted. And so the question is, do we want to treat the code enforcement specialist like we treat our seasonal code enforcement role, which is not a role anymore because we changed that to be a second code enforcement specialist. So 2 items for you all to consider, and appreciate any thoughts on that.
I think you should, Jeff, equally treat them both, specialists and code enforcement. Okay,
Help me.
so they need to have.
Yeah,
same-
so the $60 cell stipend is in existence for those employees that are expected to be able to have access to the internet when they're out and about and to potentially answer emails or things like that. The $35 level is for employees that are expected to be able to answer their phone because maybe they're out in the field and we have to get a hold of them to come in or to go to a different work site or whatever that might be. So that's kind of the logic behind the 2 levels. And certainly the code enforcement specialist role, they could be out and about in the field. They, whether or not they need to have internet access is something that we could talk about. But right now, I think the recommendation would be to treat them the same as the other code enforcement roles.
I think if they're out there, if they have access to the internet, they can get that information they need right away. It's only a $30 difference. It's really will be helpful for them. I think $30 make no difference. Make access to the internet and all the capabilities.
I'm fine changing from 60 to 35 because I personally pay for my own cell phone and I know about what the value of it is, and 35 is probably closer to the value than 60 is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Thank you. All right. So the next question is just based again on some best practices that we saw out there around ethics policies and whether or not you all wanted us to address these items or not. So the first item is, political activity. And, my recommendation here is if you would address that, it would be to draft something that addresses that while you are working for Colerain Township, you remain politically neutral. But in your free time, you're allowed to do whatever you want because it is free speech. Or we could keep the policy as is and not address that at all.
I think if you're a uniformed police or fire or, wearing the shirt that you're wearing right now, to me, you're representing Colerain Township and you should remain politically neutral. If you're out of fire or police uniform and not wearing a Colerain shirt, then you're free to do what you want.
Sure.
But not by saying I'm Jeff Weckbach, Assistant Administrator, Colerain Township. I'm Jeff Weckbach.
Sure.
So
And I think our
you're
social
not
media
representing the
policy
township.
addresses that a little bit too, to where if an employee is on Facebook, it's suggested that they differentiate if they are acting as the township or not as the township. So if I were to go on there and suggest all my political views, I should say, this is Jeff Weckbach as a person speaking, not Jeff Weckbach, the assistant administrator speaking.
And I even think within the workplace, just to mirror the Hatch Act, I mean, you can't have
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought of this, a Jerry Ford sticker. That was a couple election cycles ago. Um, yeah. But if you don't say a word about supporting Ford for president, but you have the sticker up there and you have people under your, supervision, I think it's a problem. And
Yes.
and I think that needs to be addressed as well. But yeah, on your free time, absolutely you have a right of free speech. Yeah, and then, yeah, absolutely.
I've seen that problem come up, and I don't know if you want to deal with this or not. When people park their vehicles at police stations or fire stations with bumper stickers that promote a certain candidate. And then the question is that a violation of the policy? And I don't know, Jeff, or trustees, if you would consider that a violation of your policy as it stands now, but usually those are the ways that these kind of issues come up.
Larry,
Perspective.
back to a comment, if the employee may have that car driving with the stickers, whatever the stickers has, he may be driving his wife's car. So how do you know this his own car is driving? Maybe his wife's car, his father's car. Or
Raj, I'm not saying it should necessarily be a violation, but I've had it over the years where I've been a law director a long time. And if someone is a strong proponent of someone who is running against a trustee, and say a number of the people in the union feel the same way, then they all park their cars in such a way that people can see them from the road when they drive by, that tends to inflame people's minds about how they, about what people are doing.
Let me ask you this, Larry. Our employee are exempt people. They're civil service employees, in essence, right?
Well, you're not civil service there.
No. On the township, okay. You got exempt or non-exempt people.
Right, that's true. And you have some that are in the union.
Yeah. So in the union contracts, is there any clause on that saying should not be politically involved?
I don't think so. Jeff, I don't negotiate your union contracts. Jeff's always done such a good job of getting them done right away. I haven't had an opportunity to really, or a necessity to review them that carefully, but I don't think your union contracts talk about that, do they, Jeff?
No, I don't believe they do. And First Amendment speech is a sticky wicket. I don't know. It may make sense to be silent on it, and I don't know.
I think that legally, I think that's a good policy, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that in this term. You can't possibly think of every situation where it's going to come up. So you're going to miss a situation and you're going to end up in court. And then, I think we should remain silent.
Agreed.
All right. So the next question along these same veins is, should we address what we consider to be conflicts of interest and disclosure requirements? So, if I am the person that is opening bids and I happen to know that a family member is going to bid, should I be disclosing that to whom? And should I be removing myself entirely because there is an opportunity for conflict of interest? And this, I think maybe I'm wrong, Matt. I thought maybe it came out of something that you said when we first met on this a while ago, but
we were talking about the applications for things like, ironically, which we're going to talk about tonight, the land use committee and things like that. I think I have just by chance taken the Ohio ethics training. I just think that maybe that should be the requirement that we take, and it deals with all those situations. And I mean, why reinvent the wheel? Let's just do what the state says. It's clear. It's clear as the state can be in a series of enjoyable 16-minute segments that go on for an entire afternoon, but at least you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think that that's a good guideline, but that's just one opinion.
Whatever the law is already written on it.
Yeah, they give examples, and then, and Mr. Unger, you would appreciate this. You get to give an emoji of smile, frown, angry, or confused for each case study that they give. And I know that you're a big emoji guy.
Not really. I would always just give the smile though.
I just gave the angry one all the time.
Yeah, if that's already in state law, you're saying we would need to add that to our ethics policy too?
No, if it's on state law, we don't have to add it here.
Well, I
Maybe
would just leave it be then.
All right. I think we kind of talked about the next item as well, which deals into sort of free speech and everything, and that's whether or not educating versus advocating is something that we want to touch on. And if I read you all earlier, keeping that silent for the time being is probably a good approach.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So the next item is our key policy. We're going to recommend to update it to not reference keys as much as to reference ID badges, because that's now our new way of getting in and out of the building. So assuming there are no issues with us changing anywhere that we reference key codes to key badges, I think that would be the approach we'd like to take.
I have a key to open the doors that can't be opened with my badge.
And that would still apply.
Yeah, it's just when it says your key code. Now we don't have key codes, we have badges.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it doesn't say key code, it says key policy.
Right.
So key code policy.
Raj, do you have a key?
Badge, the key badge.
It's a metal key that'll open.
No,
That
I
door.
used to. It doesn't work anymore, no? Doesn't anyway.
Policy for that.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's easy. So the next policy, this is a very stark deviation from anything that we currently do. The idea from this actually came from another local community. City of Sharonville got some national recognition recently because they have a volunteering policy that encourages and allows employees to volunteer once or twice a year at local places to help make their community better. So the idea here is whether or not we wanted to talk about whether or not incentives related to volunteering in Colerain were something we wanted to explore, whether that's as a team building activities or individually or what that might be. And, naturally we can always keep things the way that they are now.
So it would be an employee who was during their regular paid work hours went and volunteered somewhere?
Yeah. So I think the way theirs is structured is they allow an employee up to 8 hours a year. So, once a year they could go out and say volunteer at a local volunteer organization, or they could volunteer and go pick up trash or whatever that might be.
Right. Yeah. If you're getting paid, I don't think that's volunteering. So if you want to do it outside of your paid hours, or if you're supposed to be here till 4 and you want to so-called clock out at 2 and go donate a couple hours, that's fine. But if I'm sending paid employees somewhere to volunteer, then what about his organization that would like some paid employees to volunteer? And so my idea would be if you're volunteering, it's not during your paid work hours.
And that's fair. I totally get that. I was just bringing this up because again,
What
things that we've
do
seen, so.
I know the one thing that they're just crying and screaming for are poll workers. What is it? P&G or Western Southern has a big link in with poll workers. They do get paid, but don't they offset that to? You don't get both salaries.
Yeah, I've seen other organizations, and Raj certainly helped me out here. If you remember this, when I was at Hamilton County, they did some sort of incentive like that also to encourage employees to go be a poll worker for the day. I can't remember though if they let you keep both or just one.
You're right, Jeff. Some of the county employees go and work and they get paid by the Board of Elections separately, but they take a vacation day from the county. But they take it's not like they take a day off from the county vacation day, and the Board of Elections pay whatever the hours.
I'm remembering there was one time, and for whatever reason it sticks in my mind, with one particular commissioner introduced legislation for 1 year. I can't remember if it was renewed for subsequent years or not. So it might have been a one-off 1 year type of thing that they tried, but I could certainly dig in more if that's something you guys wanted to consider, or we can keep things as they are and not incentivize volunteering.
I would keep things as they are.
Okay.
All right. So outside of these questions, I do appreciate you all weighing in on them. We do have a couple of new policies that have been drafted, some of which I hope you all have had a time to review. And so if there are questions on any of those, feel free to ask. And then we still have some outstanding policy questions around vacation time and sick leave donation. So I don't know if there is anything that makes more sense for us to talk about at this moment, or if we want to dive right back into the vacation time.
Jeff, I got a question paying off the vacation time. You made the new change. I think the new change you made, if they accrue some time within a year, they accrue within a year, they won't get paid. But if I understand you correctly, say before they start in January, they're leaving like sometime in December. If you go by the accrued time, I think whatever the time the accrued, the time of the departure, they should be get paid. I think the new policy is they don't get paid, if I understand correctly.
So if I understand, Raj, you're suggesting that if we set it up to where it was accrued, so there was a deposit of, say, 2 hours of vacation time every 2 weeks, then we would also want to make sure that employees could get paid out for that if they left. So basically, if you start day one, you have 0 hours of vacation. After 2 weeks, you would like to see them accrue whatever that small portion of hours would be.
See, my question is, say they didn't take any vacation the whole year. Say they are, like I say, but 70 hours left on the time of the depart, they're leaving. So the new policy, you'll get paid that, the person will get paid this, whatever the hours he got on the book.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, depending on how you all want it to be written. So I came back with a couple different versions. One was each pay period, you accrue a small amount. The other version had some language that dealt with that first year and preventing a payout if you did not, stay for the full year or whatever that might be.
I have a problem with that. I think even though if you didn't take, you can, for the year, what are the vacation hours left? You should be get paid for the time you leave, person leave.
Matt or Dan?
Other two trustees will.
I would, the policy of accumulating vacation hours per pay period is something I've seen quite a bit of in my world of the private industry world.
Okay.
And I'm not private industry, and we accumulate by pay period our personal days and sick days, and I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a majority of you would like for us to transition to a accumulate per pay period.
That's the big question. How do you transition?
So I've put some thought into it, and if the board is okay with us setting a date when that were to occur, and then we would calculate up whatever that employee would have gotten if it were traditional. So say the employee's anniversary date is January 1, and we make this effective July 1st, then we could credit them with, say, their 1 week of vacation. That way they're not left sort of holding the bag going, well, what about me? You gypped me out of a week of vacation or whatever that might be.
I'd almost be for starting at January 1,
okay,
2021, so that this is something I feel that it's a major enough sea change and shift that you need to let people know well in advance that they feel like that they're, that they're not losing anything.
And I would agree, Matt, but and that's for people that are here as of today, June 9th.
Yes.
But I would say any new employee that would be hired or start their term of work here after today would go on the accumulated plan, because people that have already been here by definition would have accumulated the time.
Okay.
So that is something you could phase in starting with any new hires, and the people that are already here, it would take care of itself because they've already been here for 6 months or a year.
I think so.
If we started January 1st.
Yes. And so the nice part is, depending on when we do it and how we do it, There was the subsequent resolution that you all adopted with the COVID-19 emergencies that suspended some of the caps. So even if we are getting creative and find a way to make it so everybody is made whole, we don't have to worry about that issue on the other end, an employee exceeding their cap because we changed up how we're doing vacation mid-year.
Right.
Um,
The other thing to keep in mind is we need to figure out how to do this in payroll. So I don't think that we could flip the switch like tomorrow on this. We'd need to work through our standard operating procedures for payroll to be able to switch over to a new way of accounting.
And I think, to that end, Jeff, that when we bring forward whatever the book is, we can, identify a payroll date that makes sense and make that the effective date and things like that, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah,
That's good.
Okay.
I would like to mention that it is 6:48 right now, so let's go on for about another 7 minutes with this, and that'll allow us a 5-minute break before the meeting starts.
We might be able to get through most of it. So the next question was about sick bank donations. Our current policy right now allows individuals to donate sick time into other individuals' sick banks. Raj, I believe you had brought up the idea of that being vacation time only that could be donated. So just wanted to bring that forward for the board to continue that conversation.
And I'll just say, because I don't know that we've had a situation since this, well, I know that not since this board has been together, we have not had a situation where a sick bank has been set up. They're very few and far between. Names that you may recall that took part in this would be folks like Jerry Grayson in a police department who ended up dying of brain cancer, Joe Moulter who ended up dying of brain cancer. So these things are very, very rarely used, but when they're used, it's for a good purpose, and that is regulated through our department directors and administration. So and I also know that it means an awful lot to our staff to know that if they go down, that their colleagues here can all chip in and keep them and their families afloat for a couple of months, or a month or whatever.
And it's not, a statistically significant survey because it was a survey of 14 communities. But of those 14 communities, 6 do not have any type of policy around this at all. 7 allow both vacation or sick. 1 had where it was vacation only. So just throwing that out there for perspective. And again, that's just based off of Center for Local Government and the survey responses they were able to receive.
I think Mr. Mills makes an outstanding point that it sends a message to employees, and for that reason, I don't want to limit it to
Appreciate that.
to vacation day.
Right now, it's employees can donate a portion of their sick leave that they have accumulated to another employee.
To an employee that's on Family Medical and Leave Act,
Could be that. They
or to
could,
somebody who's individually ill, or
yeah, could be any of those circumstances.
Or their child has come up, where a child has needed to go, far afield for specialized medical care, and over time you burn through your sick leave, and taking your kid to Pennsylvania and
sure. So if I in a situation where let's say I was preparing to leave on good terms, and I had a lot of sick days left, and I couldn't take them with me when I retired, so I donate them to you, and then because you're leaving because you've got a sick child, and then you don't use them all, so can you take them and pass them along to the next person? Or
no, a sick bank has to be established. So there's not like just a bank out there. There's a sick bank established for a certain situation. And so if for example, a member of our team had brain cancer, there would be a sick bank established. We would ask employees if they would like to donate their sick time at that time, and then the bank would be built up, and then that employee could draw down on that. It wouldn't be something where, like, as I'm walking out the door, I say, here are 100 hours that you can just put into a bank somewhere for somebody to use down the line. If there's not a bank set up, then you can't.
So,
okay, so if I donate them for a specific cause, and the employees collectively donate 1,000 hours, and only 500 of them get used, and there's still 500 sitting in the bank, do they just go back to that employee, the employee that donated them? Or that's just all things to think about when you put together the policy?
I think that we try to match them back to the employee as best as we can at the end if the bank can be closed. But usually the employee is in such dire straits that most, if not all of it, gets used up.
Hey, Jeff, I got, can I say? Some employees call me, talk to me about this. It is a good program. If there is a life-threatening situation, they really need, if you decide to give, it's okay. It has to be, like Dan said, completely evaluated. Maybe like you already have the policy, you got a panel set up for that, right? You got a panel set up, evaluation, and carefully dispense, it'd be okay.
Okay, so I think that goes direct. I really appreciate this conversation, board. As a next step, what I'm going to propose is that I package up these changes that we've talked about, pull together a brand new, awesome policy book that has everything. I know, Matt, that there were a couple of parks related policies and we haven't necessarily had time to talk about them. So my suggestion is that this will be on a future agenda, and when it's on that agenda, we can continue that conversation around some of these parks policies. The two that are on there, I know Jackie delved in real deep to try to find others that were out there. She looked and pulled some data from both Hamilton County Great Parks, Butler County Great Parks, and some others in her network. So, we still have some questions related to those two new policies, but hopefully through one or two, discussions during trustee meetings, that'll hopefully get us there.
I think that'll be great. And it's about 6:55 p.m. So I would like to, our next meeting starts at 7. So I would like to ask for a motion for adjournment from the special meeting, and then we'll go on a little.
Also
break.
motion.
And I'll second the motion for adjournment. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote to adjourn the special meeting.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
The special meeting of the Board of Trustees is adjourned at 6:55 p.m. We will start again in about 5 minutes. Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. Fiscal Officer Jeff Baker, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Rajagopal,
Here.
Mr. Unger,
Here.
Mr. Waller.
Here.
There are 5 of us in the room. Raj is joining us by Zoom. Dana's here from Waycross. So I'd ask that everyone stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which
for
it
each
stands,
regard.
lot to keep on our minds and our thoughts. Everybody in our great nation has been affected in one way or another by all the things that are going on in this past month. Just a wide spectrum of things: business shutdowns, people that are ill, people that are protesting in the streets, business owners who have had their businesses destroyed, and the Lord has watched out for us, and a lot of that has avoided Colerain Township directly. But I'd ask you to keep in mind everybody who's been affected by our nation's events in the last couple months, and so a moment of silence for that. Please keep them in your prayers. Amen. And the next item will be from our fiscal office, Fiscal Officer Jeff Baker.
Thank you, Board. First, I would like to ask for the approval of the minutes for the special meeting that occurred on May 26th, 2020.
I'll make a
I would
motion.
motion that
Okay.
Raj is motioning that we approve the special meeting minutes from May 26th, and I'll second that motion. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
None from I. Jeff Baker, would you please call for a vote on approving the May 26th minutes from the special meeting?
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye, and that's the regular meeting, May 26th, by the way.
special meeting.
Special meeting. Okay. Aye.
And Mr. Waller.
Aye.
I would also like the board to approve the regular meeting minutes on May 26, 2020 as well.
I would motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from May 26, 2020.
I'll second
I
it.
second it.
It's been motioned by Unger and seconded by Wallert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
That's all I have.
And do we have the June 2nd meeting minutes? Okay, so we'll move the approval of the June 2nd minutes to the next meeting. Next item is a retirement proclamation. Our fire chief, Frank Cook.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
This evening, I'd like to recognize firefighter paramedic Matthew Drennen. Today's actually Matt's last shift as a employee with the Department of Fire and EMS. Unfortunately, Matt couldn't be with us this evening, but certainly we still like to recognize him for his dedicated service over the past 35 and a half years. You know, Matt and myself, actually, we were in the same recruit class back in October of 1984. And, he's been a friend, and he's been a faithful employee to the township, served in a number of capacities. Some of his specialty items that he really excelled in was an instructor, a fire instructor, an EMS instructor. Very dynamic instructor, and just brought a lot of experience and knowledge to whatever the classes were that he was teaching. He also effectively managed our self-contained breathing apparatus program. He was the one that was responsible for bringing us into compliance with new standards and making sure that our firefighters were compliant with health and safety standards as far as fit testing and things like that. So, again, with your approval and issuance of a proclamation, we'd like to recognize firefighter paramedic Matthew Drennen for his 35 and a half years of service to the township.
I will make that motion.
I second it. Oh, go ahead.
Motion by Wallert, second by Raj. Is there any discussion?
Dan, there is very commendable service he did for a department, and we really thankful for all his service. And also we thank his family for letting him do the service for our township and for his dedication. It's amazing job he did, and wish him good luck for his retirement.
And Matt, I'd like to congratulate you on your time served here. It's very much appreciated. One of the things about working for an elected board is you've seen a lot of trustees over your long career here, and you've made it to the finish line. And for that, I congratulate you. And on behalf of the citizens of Colerain Township, I'm sure many of whom you've met along the way. So congratulations, and I hope all the best things happen for you in your future endeavors.
I'd like to echo those remarks. Thank you for your service, Mr. Drennen. And I also noted in your biography that you served in the U.S. military, so thank you for your service to our country and our community. Those things seem to overlap somewhat, and I think that's because certain people are born with a heart for service. And that evidently is the case with Mr. Drennen. So, Matt, thank you so much for your service, and as Mr. Unger said, good luck in the future and in retirement.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And the retirement proclamation is approved.
Mr. Unger, will you read the proclamation then, or?
Certainly, I can read it.
Okay, thank you.
Proclamation for Matthew C. Drennen for his years of dedicated service to Colerain Township, Ohio. Whereas firefighter paramedic Matthew C. Drennen was hired on October 6th of 1984 as an employee of the Colerain Township Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, and whereas firefighter paramedic Matthew C. Drennen has demonstrated professionalism, allegiance, service, commitment, and excellence through his contributions as a firefighter, emergency medical technician, paramedic, instructor, program manager, employee, and friend during his tenure with the department. And whereas firefighter paramedic Matthew C. Drennen retired on June 9th, 2020, after more than 35 and a half years of commendable dedication to the fire service and the Colerain Township community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Colerain Township Board of Trustees recognizes firefighter paramedic Matthew C. Drennen as an outstanding employee and that he contributed greatly to our community during his long tenure of public service. Be it further resolved that in recognition of all that firefighter paramedic Matthew C. Drennen has done for Colerain Township, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees hereby proclaim Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 as a special day of recognition for Matthew C. Drennen to acknowledge his contributions to our community and wish him continued success in retirement. And we will get this
Decide to do it virtually, but we'll give him
virtual clap.
the applause that he would deserve.
There we go. And I'll make sure that that Matthew gets this nice proclamation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Frank.
Chief.
And the next item is a public hearing. Jeff Mills. Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, board. Good evening. It has been a long time since we've had the privilege of having residents and stakeholders come in to give their testimony at a public hearing. And one of the reasons that's driving the change in how we're handling public comment is the fact that we need to have public hearings in order to keep certain items of business moving forward. One of the things that we had in our strategic plan this year and that we want to accomplish is to maintain our sidewalk. And so Mr. Iona in just a minute will be giving a presentation on the sidewalk maintenance project, phase 1. And then we do have one person who has signed up to speak at the public hearing. It's worth noting that in order to have a public hearing, folks must be sworn in by our law director to swear to tell the truth. And it is our opinion that that cannot be done virtually. And so we had to have it in person. That is why we have the change here today. And with that as prelude, I'll kick it over to Director of Planning and Zoning, Mike Iona, to talk about the sidewalk maintenance project.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Good evening, board members. The Sidewalk Maintenance Program has been created to repair and maintain Colerain Township's neighborhood sidewalks. In Colerain Township, sidewalk maintenance and repair is the responsibility of the property owner. The majority of the existing sidewalk located in Colerain Township, they were initially built during the same time that the adjoining streets and homes were constructed. After several decades, many of these sidewalks do require repair. The first phase of the sidewalk maintenance program focuses on 2 areas located in Northbrook and Groesbeck neighborhoods, approximately 1.5 miles apart from each other. Both areas were chosen due to their proximity to crucial township assets, including schools, libraries, and commercial destinations. The main facets of this program are as follows. Number 1, the sidewalk repairs are performed under the program and are completed by Colerain Township through a vendor that is selected through an RFP process. All property owners in this program are notified multiple times of the repairs as well as the program, and they're offered a time frame in which to complete the repairs on their own or opt out of the program. And some of these property owners did. Once the repairs are completed by the township, for those property owners that decide to stay in the program, once the repairs are completed by the township, the property owners pay that cost over a multi-year period through an assessment in their tax bill. The program is financed through a revolving fund, which means that future phases of the program are funded through previous assessments of previous phases of the program, which means that no additional money, aside from the initial seed money for the program, is required to keep the program going. The initial seed money for this program will come from the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG funds, and that's administered through Hamilton County. And all of this really means that the seed money, as well as future phases, it can and are intended to be operated without using funds from the general fund and only staff time. The benefit to property owners of this program is, well, one, they get their sidewalks repaired and they don't have to go through our code enforcement process, you know, and the issuance of NOVs to get the, to bring the properties into compliance. The second is that they don't have to contract with the vendor to complete the repairs. We take care of that for them. The third benefit is that the completed repairs are actually done to a specification, and we check on that. So to make sure that it meets all township specifications. And the fourth benefit is that property owners get to pay the cost of it back through an extended period of time rather than having that bill due up front. So that's the program in a nutshell. The reason we have the public hearing tonight, it's being conducted to fulfill an ORC, Ohio Revised Code statute requirement that is necessary in order for the trustees to authorize township staff to go into a contract to complete these repairs. The next step in this process is to present a resolution to the board at the next public hearing, or excuse me, at the next board hearing on June 23rd, for you all to authorize a resolution for the township to complete the repairs of those properties identified within the sidewalk maintenance program phase 1. So that's all for my presentation. We've gone over this over the past few meetings, so I'd be happy to answer any questions before we open it up to the public hearing.
Mike, that's a great program. I really commend you for making such a large initiative to make this happen, especially the neighborhood. It was aged for a long time and the time for them to have a sidewalk. You were not there. I think the last year we had the town hall meetings. All the town hall meetings, the first priority that people want to see sidewalk. It's a big factor, and it makes the neighborhood nicer. And also safety issues. Some of the sidewalks cracked and everything, and you can walk. So it is a great program. And secondly, I commend you for all this money funding coming from all the seed monies, the community grant funds, and you work hard to get all these things. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I do
So
not
we'll
have any
need a
comments.
motion to open the public hearing.
I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay, I would like to go ahead and make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second it.
It's been motioned and seconded, and in the public hearing is the public hearing for sidewalk maintenance project phase 1. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And the public hearing is open. Jeff Mills?
Yep. So we have one gentleman here that would like to speak at the public hearing. Mr. Barbier, would you please swear him in?
Sir, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this case, in this public hearing, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Krieger, the floor is yours.
Hello, Mr. Krieger.
Okay, good evening. I came for 3 points. The first one, you just said that people could opt out of the sidewalk program, but I was not told how to do it. And if I had to promise to have the work done or make some legal commitment, because I have been a taxpayer here for over 40 years in that house. And my taxes are less than the bill that they sent me. So I went to people working cooperatively, and they said they do have a program which they would fix my sidewalks at no cost because of my low income. I'm disabled. However, that program requires financing. So there's no way that I could tell this Chris that I talked to that I could promise that it would be done in any particular time. And when I talked to him, he basically I have again, a disability. I have a case manager that assists me. He's been doing the conversation back and forth with Chris, and my understanding from him is that the only thing I could do is to come to you. Otherwise, you're going to charge me this large amount. Well, first of all, I live in a corner.
I'm sorry, what did you say, please?
I live on, my address is on Laverne,
Okay,
but my driveway comes out on Lower Linda. And my property taxes, again, I've paid it over 40 years, has never exceeded $1,000. It's always been under $1,000. The bill that they sent me for Lower Linda was over $1,000. The bill they sent me for Laverne was over $1,000. And when Chris was contacted, he, again, I get this secondhand, was unaware that the two letters was for the same property because I received the two bills on two separate statements. And he said, yes, indeed, again, secondhand, that I would have to pay both of those. So I'm coming here. The first step is to request that my address be removed from the list of the ones that are going to be done, because I am on the list to be done by people working cooperatively. That is my, I'm saying three different things. That's number one. Number two, I'm not the only one who, this is a terrible burden. I mean, Colerain Township objects to an unfunded mandate from the state, and you seek justice and help. Now, here's an agency that's willing to help the people of Colerain, people working cooperatively. I would like to personally request a contribution from Colerain Township to people working cooperatively. This fund would not be just, you know, I'm not asking just for myself. There are many people in this situation that well, I don't want to go belabor that point, but there are many people that would be benefit. And people working cooperatively, I've had assistance for heating and other work on my house. I would not be able to live in a house without their assistance, and I highly recommend their services. The third thing is again, is how you assign the cost. For anybody living in a corner, it's really not fair to have both roads double a double charge. So I had three things. One is the have my thing removed. Second is a donation, and the third is that the way this is being assigned is unfair. And some remedy should be made, especially for like myself on a corner, even the ones that do not have the low income handicap. So I would request that for them. Finally, it's been presented as an advantage to have this put on taxes. Now, I don't know how many of you had any experience, but for example, I cannot have my Social Security withheld to pay income tax because I'm living on it if my income is in my amount of money that I have. So I am protected by government. But here, that protection is circumvented by assigning the things to the property, I have been told by several people that my payment, which is very difficult, but I've paid it every year for over 40 years. The money goes to this project first, and then my taxes wouldn't be paid unless I had enough money to cover both things. It jeopardizes my home. That has made me very upset, and I tried to talk to different people. My counselor is helping me. I'm getting professional help for my problems, but I have not had any help from this Chris other than the advice to come here, and that is what I've done. I thank you for listening to me. I hope that you will consider people working cooperatively donation, and also think that you are representing me and have my best interests at heart. Thank you. And is there any questions that I can?
Well, thank
So
you.
what is the,
This
I'm
is
sorry.
just a hearing to take testimony, and I don't think we're, in this hearing, I don't think we can engage in discussion. I would like it if you would give Mr. Mills your phone number, because I'd like to follow up and learn a little more, but during this hearing, it's just to take testimony.
Dana, I asked him to give me his address. His address, please.
I've got it on the sign-in sheet, Raj, so
Okay.
if you want to contact Mr. Krieger afterwards, it looks like Jeff Weckbach is getting his contact information.
Okay,
Um,
good.
Because these testimonies need to be in person, we have had only one person show up in person.
Correct.
So as far as the sworn part of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I see no one else that has shown up to provide testimony and can be sworn in.
That's correct.
So
Recommend the
that's
motion
the only one we have. So any other comments, we might be able to read them during the citizens address,
Sure.
but
I'd
not during
recommend a
the
motion.
sworn part.
There was someone out in the hall, out in the, are they
I
for
think he's just here for the
meeting? Okay.
citizens address.
Okay.
So I'd recommend a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I would motion that we end the public hearing. He can't motion it. It has to be one of us.
No, he said so.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I will second trustee Wallert's motion to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote to close the public hearing.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
All right.
The public hearing is closed. And our next item is citizens address.
Yes, sir.
So I believe that it is Mr. Miller out in the hall. Can he come in and address us?
Number one.
Hello, Mr. Miller. How are you? It's nice to see you.
Always good, it's always good to see you all. I was really wishing for a room with my neighbors.
We
in it,
didn't know
but,
if one person was going to show up or 40, but we were prepared for as many as who would come. So
Okay, well, that's good, I'm here, what I was going to say don't really involve the sidewalks that we're talking about, so I don't need to be sworn, but I was going to talk about the sidewalks we paid for down at Duke with your vote and with Greg Ensko's vote. We got money sitting down there on sidewalks. That sidewalk should have been put at Colerain Cardinals on Pool Road. Then we got another $4 million sitting down there at Rumpke on that road and that sidewalk. And all that money was orchestrated by that man over there, Jeff Mills. That's $5 million of our tax money, for it from the school. So I'll use that Northwest School District. Go down there and take a look at Rumpke's new road and Rumpke's sidewalk nowhere, because half your school money is sitting right there, because that's $4 million of the $8 million they just told you they're going to cut your bus service. I can't breathe in this daggone mask. Yeah, I just can't,
we're under the governor's mandate to do things, and we're trying our best to.
So, that's what I want to say, everybody go down there and take a look at your road, because half your school money and then increasing your tax money on your property is sitting down there at Rumpke. $4 million given by, let's see, was that Ritter, Indahees, and I guess I could blame Dieters too, because he walked out and left his Indahees in his place. So, you know, I'll blame Dieters too, since his family's had collusions with Rumpke too. I mean, he let Rumpke's family member have 0 days for 2 homicides. And the news failed to tell us that. 2 homicides, and he got 0 days for it. They called it time served because he got 30 days for not showing up for court. And he was even aware of that. Media didn't tell us. You might be in the clique, you might know that. And this people know, this building knows. These people had to show up for them 2 homicides. Firefighters had to show up, ambulance had to show up. And for what? So Rumpke can walk away scot-free because he owns Joe Dieters, the family does? That's the way I look at it. When Joe Dieters lets you have 0 days for 2 homicides, what did that cost you? A satchel of cash? I don't know. Why? See, I was raised by the greatest generation. Let's go there. They always said the wealthy gets 1 murder. Well, we've seen that in this township. Yeah, they also said stuff like, the wealthy gets 1 murder. I'm blanking here. Oh, well. We're going to let you go here, but I do want everybody to know half your school money's sitting down there at Rumpke between that road and that sidewalk to nowhere. And the other, and the property tax that Dan and Greg Ensko give away is sitting down there at Duke. What sidewalk was needed for schools, and it got ignored by this building. And on the school board, wasn't it Harlow's old man down there on the school board when he said Rumpke should keep that $4 million? Just curious. You said you weren't there, Dan. I'm just curious if you know that.
You mean Michael Harlow on the school board?
Right. Was he down there?
He was on, I went off in 15 and Michael was on in 16 and 17.
Okay. Was that year Rumpke got the $4 million? Because the school board said he could keep it. Of course, they told the public we're going to give it back. Going to cut your bus service for the road down Rumpke and the sidewalk down at Rumpke. They're going to cut your bus service. And you listen to the school board even lie to you about it. I don't live in Northwest School District, so that's not my money. I live in Mount Healthy School District, but I live in Colerain Township. It is my money sitting down there at Duke on that sidewalk. And we're going to make these people in this township pay for their sidewalk. Plus, I got to pay for Duke's for the next 30 years. 30 years, that's just good for. I'll be paying for Duke's sidewalk for 30 years. All right, that's good enough. I thank you.
But thank you, Keith. I was just writing a note.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And I don't see anyone else that's shown up in person for citizens address. So we did receive some comments via email, and I'm going to ask, did you want to try to read this long one, Matt, or would you like me to? Or
Yeah, I can read it. I don't think I need to read the beginning, just under public comments, and then okay. Yeah, that's just a letter, I think, to administration. I'm going to skip that part. But I'm on. Oh, okay. So I'm getting all kinds of feedback here. Where it says, "Dear Trustees," and it has a letter, I think I should skip that part. Okay. All right, and I'll start under public comments. Number 1, and this is just being read directly, directly word for word what's said here. What's that? This is from Carrie. Is it Carrie Davis or Greater Colerain?
Davis.
Okay. Number 1, the township is making legal interpretive error on the issue of viticulture that needs address and clarification. Update on the Save Lake Gloria campaign currently has 1,400 signatures. The Greater Colerain Community Group conducted a survey on multiple Facebook pages inquiring as to the frequency of which persons go fishing at the lake. 68 people responded. 49 indicated they would visit the lake to fish 6 or more times a year. 17 indicated they would go there to fish 3 to 5 times a year. 1 person said once or twice a year, and 4 said they would never go fishing there. It is worth noting that a township employee was making derogatory and harassing comments on social media in opposition to the Lake Gloria campaign that we find highly unprofessional, childish, and false. Update on the Greater Colerain Community Group request for 4 different mini grants. Such grant requests are a drive-in movie event, a COVID point of distribution event, a Halloween hike, and a Christmas walk and community tree lighting event. The trustees nor administration has made any inquiries of the GCCG about any of the grants, nor has any been placed on the agenda for a vote. The administration has claimed that all grant requests must be vetted prior to being put on the agenda. However, the policy indicates that this is the sole decision of the Board of Trustees. GCCG is being denied an opportunity for a vote up or down on each of the requests as stated in policy. Upon requesting a status report on the mini grants, GCCG was informed the point of distribution event nor the drive-in movie event met the desired criterion for approval. It appears that the trustees will deny GCCG a public discussion and vote on the matter. When GCCG asked for clarification on how it did not meet the criterion, we received no response. It befuddles the mind to understand how expending up to $500 for putting invisible paint on the sidewalks that can only be seen by persons walking in the rain on rainy days when the paint is visible meets an objective goal or criterion that providing COVID relief, a family movie night, and 2 holiday events do not qualify as pop-up events, but a wet sidewalk message to so few people who might be out walking that particular street in the rain provides. Befuddling. It appears that the township is using the awarding of mini grants as a means of retaliating against residents who do not carry water for the township rather than based on the merit of the grant application. Most importantly, GCCG would like to know how the township will be responding to the national outcry for the need for policing reforms requested by Black Lives Matter. The GCCG has brought to the attention of the trustee concerns for a lack of diversity in our hiring and contracting before. The township has refused to embark on any programs to correct these deficiencies in administration. The trustees are also each aware that our police chief has been involved in multiple cover-ups of police misconduct. Specifically, the cover-up of the crimes of former Colerain police officer Ashley Meyer. Again, I'm kind of in the middle of this, but I'll just remind folks that this is from Ms. Carrie Davis. So if you're turning this on late, that's the source of this. I don't want you to think that these are my thoughts or anyone else's thoughts or whatever. Colerain police officer Ashley Meyer, that Mark Denny withheld information from trustees or trustees agreed with the egregious misconduct Denny exercised in concealing from the public and crime victims and from her personal life for theft of medications from Colerain residents, failed to file criminal charges, and allowed her to maintain her standing and acquire another position of public trust, knowing she committed criminal offenses against Colerain residents. Denny and other officers covered up and declined to file charges in an assault of a resident by one of our off-duty officers. About 2 months ago, an elderly Black woman came to a trustee meeting clearly seriously harmed by excessive force by some of our officers and has or will be filing suit against the township for police brutality. Matt Teetsort's home was improperly entered by police, yet Mark Denny remains chief of police in spite of a dismal record of abuse of office, dereliction of duty, and abuse of discretion in order to cover up for police misconduct. The GCCG requests that the township create a citizens review panel to assure police brutality and misconduct is properly addressed in a fair and unbiased manner, and that Mark Denny be removed for cause for his failure to file charges against officers under his command who engaged in criminal or unethical conduct. Now, the next section was supposed to be read during the public hearing, but since the Ms. Davis wasn't sworn in, we are going to read it during the public comment. There's several issues, and since we've really not voted on anything, it's not really, this is me, I guess, opining. It's still being read into the record one way or another. There are several issues with the program pertaining to the public hearing citizens address for sidewalk maintenance program. There are several issues with this program and the legal use of grant monies for the project. There have been at least 3 discussions of this program, and each discussion had differing information provided by the administrator per the agenda language, grant application, and official meeting minutes. The varying information is of material facts for public consideration. The agenda is missing any information in Exhibit A. This omission of material facts denies the public and trustees the ability to properly consider and comment on the proposal. Number 3, the most recent versions of this program appear to violate federal and state law for the use of grant funding and require correction prior to authorization. Number 4, under this program, the township is ordering the repair of sidewalks. When done by the property owner is being required to obtain a permit and inspection at the property owner's expense in order to comply with an order. This appears to be unlawful and overly burdensome on homeowners. Number 5, public records have been requested by citizens relevant to this matter. Such records and ancillary questions have not been answered. Such withholding of information prior to the public hearing is contrary to the public's interest. Number 6, the Board of Trustees is initiating a program described by the Township Administrator as, quote, morally wrong, unquote, in previous meetings due to the financial impediments of these residents. Number 7, the sums demanded of the residents for the sidewalk repair provided to them is arbitrary and capricious. Since no bid or RFP has occurred, the sums demanded are unknown. They may be higher, they may be lower. No one knows the sum, and therefore a vote by trustees or the need for public commentary could be significantly altered. Since this information is provided to residents is only a guesstimate, public support cannot properly be considered. Number 8, there are 2 items on the agenda for sidewalks, a construction plan and an overall connect Colerain plan. It appears the agenda is getting the cart before the horse, that it is necessary to approve the connect Colerain plan prior to being able to pass the phase 1 plan as to the form of the resolutions. Number 9, since the public records have not been provided, it is impossible to ascertain if the legal notices met the requirement of law. Number 10, finally, the trustees have pursued an initiative whereby they order poor property owners to pay for sidewalk repairs while providing multiple wealthy corporations considerable funding to meet their mandates under law. This disparity in the treatment of residents versus businesses is arbitrary and capricious, literally robbing the poor to pay for sidewalk funding for the rich. This practice is evident in the provision of sidewalks and more to businesses like Duke Energy, the sidewalk waivers to Joseph Automotive Group, while imposing sidewalk maintenance/construction to small business owners and homeowners without noting on the record the reasoning for such distinctions or need. Furthermore, the township is utilizing grant funding to benefit business entities in good favor with trustees while denying to others based on frivolous or false claims. The hearing must be held in abeyance so that these conflicting statements, facts, and omissions can be ascertained and provided to the public and trustees prior to passing a vague and ambiguous resolution that neither the public nor trustees know the facts to be. Again, those both are from Ms. Carrie Davis.
Thank you, Matt. Did we have any other comments emailed in? Oh, yeah, we do
not
have
email.
one here that was dropped off,
There was one that was dropped off.
and it is handwritten, and it's from Stephanie Wright. And here is the Stephanie's comments. Why are we hiring a communication services co-op? The board has made itself clear that this was not needed. When, what date will the police department start responding to non-emergency calls? That is a question. And the third comment, how much money has been collected since the false alarm fees resolutions were passed, but she was passed. And that is the 3 questions from Stephanie Wright. Did we have any other comments, Jeff?
No, sir.
And I did get a question from Linda Goggle that hopefully I answered in an email that she sent me.
Very
So, and with that, with no other comments, we would move on from citizens' address to administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. We'll begin our administrative reports with Mr. Frank Cook, our Chief of Fire and EMS. And do you have, oh no, I can get it here. I think I can put it up here. Oops. I will try to put up the dashboard here for you.
Okay, the only information I've got to provide this evening is our emergency incident activity for the month of May.
Go ahead, Chief. I'll work on getting this up.
Okay, so during the month of May, the department responded to 669 emergency medical incidents, 159 fire service call related incidents, and they responded into the Springfield Township, Pleasant Run Farms contract area 30 times. Our reported fire loss was estimated to be $25,000 for the month. So during the month, there were 6 incidents that sustained a fire loss, the most significant being a building fire that occurred in the 2500 block of Winning Road. That was a result of a failed gas meter, natural gas meter service providing natural gas service to a home. The fire ignited at the meter, and we were unable to get in there and shut it off at the meter like we normally would. So we had to wait Duke Energy to come and locate the shutoff in the street. Normally, that's something that we can do. We've got the tools and the ability to do it, but the shutoff was buried into the ground, and we couldn't find it. So we had to wait and just protect the house and the exposure. So again, that was the most significant incident during the month. Our incident response times for the month, our average response time for arrival by the first unit was 5 minutes and 14 seconds. And our first unit on the scene in less than 6 minutes occurred 72.6% of the time. Any questions?
None at this time. Matt, Raj?
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for your service on all the first responders during this time.
Thank you, Chief. Next item, Mr. Mills.
Next, we'll bring up Chief Mark Denny from our police department.
Good evening, Board. The emergency call service for May for the police department, we had 3,053 calls for service. The officers made 67 physical arrests. I'm sorry, 50 physical arrests and 67 traffic stops. They made 8 DUI arrests as part of that total as well. And the average response to all calls combined was 8.1 minutes. To answer Mrs. Wright's question, Sunday, June 14th at 7 a.m., we will return to responding to all calls. We jumped on that pretty early and got our guys in a position to keep them healthy, and we're pretty happy that we've gotten to this point without having any officers get sick at all. So, we'll carefully monitor to make sure that the risk doesn't go up, and if it does, we can revert back to this call response. But right now, we feel it's safe to go back and respond to non-emergency calls as well. The police department received notice about 2 days ago that we are the recipient of a $33,000 Department of Justice assistance grant for the COVID response. So that will help pay for overtime and supplies that we needed to purchase to successfully keep everybody safe. So we were very glad to see that through, and Lieutenant Ed Corey is responsible for that grant. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Great job.
Thank you, Chief.
Mark, I'd like to make a comment while I've got you on the screen. Over the last couple months, I think the department has done a phenomenal job of maintaining order here in Colerain Township and responding to the calls that you have. And your idea at the very beginning to divide the department up into Team A and Team B, so we would always have a group that was ready to provide service. And then your follow-up by seeking out the grant money to pay for that so that it didn't come from our local funds. I'm just very pleased with the way that you and the department have handled this.
I appreciate that.
I really mean that. If you look around at different municipalities, some close to us, one just south of us, their response to a lot of things seems rather chaotic. And what you've done here in Colerain has been the exact opposite of that. We have had a lot of really good things happen here. You have respected people's rights to assemble. Collectively, the citizens of Colerain Township have responded by, following the best they can the dictates of the state and federal government, primarily the state government. And when we look back in the history of the last few months as written, we were able to say, Colerain Township respected every right they could of the people that live here. I look at some other states and municipalities, and I believe about 5% of what I hear in the media, down from 7% a month ago. And you've done a phenomenal job, Mark. And I think the number one responsibility of a local government is to maintain order in a community, especially during times like this. And I just wanted to take a minute and thank you for that. So
I appreciate those comments, and I'm lucky to have fantastic officers, but we're even luckier to have a great community. These things necessarily wouldn't be possible in certain communities, so the credit goes to them as well. So, but thank you for the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Next, we'll bring Director of Planning and Zoning, Mr. Mike Iona, up to the screen. Mr. Iona.
Hi, I'm here. I didn't know it'd be my turn. We skipped over public services. Good evening, board members. I'm happy to report on the numbers this month. It's been a banner year for permits this year. Single family permits, accessory structure permits. If you look at the numbers here, we are up higher than we were in 2008 at the peak of the, the last big housing boom. So, despite all the external crisis with the COVID pandemic and other issues going on in the community, we've continued to see growth as far as our permit numbers. As far as the BZA and Zoning Commission, we haven't seen as many cases as we typically do, but I can tell you that we continue to see development, continue to have development discussions. It's something that is exciting to see, just especially over the past couple of weeks. We've had some very productive conversations and look forward to the future as more developers continue to evaluate and ask questions about zoning requirements for future phases of subdivisions, existing subdivisions in Colerain. So that's a good sign for the future. As it pertains to our violation volume, this is just a busy time of year. And it's the season for code enforcement. Our code enforcement officers are always out in the field, and they're working hard. So one of the things that we're really excited about, so we've been really focusing on every aspect of our code enforcement service line since I got here about several months ago. And we looked at everything from our communique all the way down to, the way that we approach code enforcement. And it's really neat to see all of those pieces and changes finally starting to click together as we hit this busy time of year. And we're really excited as we wrap up some of the interviews we're holding for the code specialist position that we've added to the roster, which will kind of fill out our code team. And it's going to allow us to roll out the new system, our new beat system. So we're really excited and looking forward to that in the code enforcement world. As it pertains to abatements, we continue to do grass abatements and trash abatements. The abatement you see on the screen here is the first trash abatement of the year, and it was a big one. It was 2800 Burnside. I'm happy to announce that it went very well. We went out, collaborated with the police department. They were extremely helpful in going out to the scene and getting the work done. So we actually pulled about 5 dumpster loads of trash out of that property, and we're going back to make sure that we got everything right and everything's on track at that site. As it pertains to the housing court referrals, those just keep coming up. Housing court has been delayed due to the COVID pandemic. So, we do have a little bit of a backlog, but we're committed to getting those done and getting through the backlog when we come through the other side of this. In fact, next Tuesday, housing court resumes. So again, everybody on the team is working very hard, and the numbers show it. So that's all for my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mike. I wanted to follow up at our last regular meeting. We added, I think it was 6691 Memory Lane to the agenda.
Yes.
And I wanted to let you know that I know you've followed up on it too, but I did drive by there, and the grass has gone from being about 3 feet tall to about 4 inches tall, and the place looks 100% better. So I'm glad that the system you set up of having a vendor ready to go remediate these issues, I'm glad that that's the one I followed up on, and it turned out great. And I think that you were going to add that to the vacant property registry, which I believe was done also. So thank you for taking care of that.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Great system set up. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add, Mr. Iona reported on June 1st at our department director's leadership meeting that year to date, as of June 1st, we had 750 cases reported into CSR for code work, and 135 of those cases are actually entered by one person. So there are our residents are keeping us busy, and our code team is working very hard to make that happen.
Thank you.
Yep. Very good. The next administrative report will be delivered by Ms. Jackie O'Connell from the Department of Public Services.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm reporting live from outside. Couple things today. We've got the park attendance this month is way up again, as we expected with COVID. We are double of what we've been doing month to month, year to year. So we are still getting a lot of park visitors. I do need to remind everybody, though, shelters are still closed per the governor. He has not reopened park shelters yet. And we have not reopened the restrooms because we can't abide by the restrictions placed on those by the governor. So we still have portalettes out at the parks. So be prepared for when you come out, bring your hand sanitizer, and just be prepared for that. The good news is, though, playgrounds open tomorrow, and so do basketball courts. We've got a lot of people I know itching to get their kids on the court and in the playgrounds. So those do open tomorrow. We're very excited about that. For our service requests, last month, potholes again topped the charts. That's our primary CSR request that we get in is potholes. And I would encourage anybody, you can report anything for public services that you need. Pothole repair, you have drainage issues, you have down trees or tree issues. You can report those all through the CSR portal on our website. So go to colerain.org. Down the bottom right and put in your service requests. We get a lot of people still calling in, which is fine, but the putting it through the web is automatic, and then you can track where your repair is. We also have our Veterans Day banners. So we talked about those at the last meeting, and we are ready to roll with those. Those will go. Those applications will go live on our website tomorrow. So any veterans who have lived, owned businesses, graduated from Colerain Township are eligible to get a banner for them, and the township is picking up the expense of that. We have 50 spots available, so it will be first come, first served based on completed applications. So, you guys have any questions for me?
Hey, Jackie, that you guys at Heritage Park doing an amazing job, and they continue to work very, very hard. And also, I see some the baseball at the Heritage Park. People are start practicing baseball there.
Had a crazy amount of requests for fields this year because a lot of the fields with the COVID issues are closed. School fields are closed, so people are looking for fields, and they're discovering what great fields we have to offer. So we're very pleased with that. Keeps us on our toes, though.
Great, good, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For my part this evening, I just wanted to share with the board that it appears as though the curve has been flattened. We have gone up one side of the curve, down the other side. Things are slowly starting to return to what could be called normal, and it's incremental. As you heard with Ms. O'Connell, tomorrow playgrounds are reopening and basketball courts are reopening. In the future, shelters will be reopening. In the future, the Citizen Senior Center will be reopening, and slowly but surely things will start to feel normal. As we get back to normal, we are turning our attention away from changing the way that we do business in every department to accommodate an international pandemic, and turning our minds and attention towards recovering costs associated with our response to the pandemic. So the first piece of that we heard tonight from the police department and the Department of Justice grant that Lieutenant Cordy wrote and was successful in getting for $33,000. In the coming weeks, we'll be bringing to you a resolution that will allow us to apply for CARES Act funding. Once the Senate and Governor of Ohio pass Senate Bill 310, we will bring that resolution to you all, and we will be aggressive in recovering as many costs as we possibly can. It's not just expenses that have gone up, it's also revenue that's been lost. So revenue that's lost through shelters and what have you. So things are getting back to normal, and I'm grateful for that. I will say, though, that the message of personal responsibility is still one that we need to take seriously. We are still transporting COVID patients out of Colerain Township. People are still contracting this. It's just we all have to be as vigilant as ever as we move forward. So that concludes my my administrative report and all of our administrative reports.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir.
So one question I did have, I don't know if this is appropriate time. I think, sometimes you make opportunity out of things that happen, that the letters into trustees were an effective means of communication. And I know that for this one, we decided not to do it because we didn't want to send a mixed message, and we wanted to kind of maybe look at what's going to be going down the road. What is the thought of allowing, again, using the shot clock, allowing those comments to be emailed in on a regular basis? I know that from my perspective, we heard a couple of emails from names that I had never heard before. And that was, I think that was important.
Sure. So there are really two forums for residents to provide feedback to the trustees and to administration. The first is citizens address. That's on every agenda, and that is not sworn testimony. So if the board would like to accept electronic formatted citizen comment, that is your prerogative. You just let me know, and we'll make that happen. The one thing that is not possible is to take electronic comment for public hearings, because that requires sworn testimony. And tonight we had a public hearing, and in the future meetings we will have very important public hearings. And so we need to be clear that electronic communication is not acceptable in that format. So
I agree. I know that we have at least one public hearing coming up that will involve a number of people.
Yep.
That they need to realize that it's done differently for that. I don't know what the other trustees think about emailed items for just the public address, citizens address.
I would say that you can email the trustees any day, anytime you want. As far as a trustee meeting, once we get out of this, whatever tomorrow's and the day after that changes are in the government mandate, once we're allowed to have public meetings that people can show up for, that's the time for citizens address. And so we would ask that you show up, and unless it was really extenuating circumstances, such as a inability to get here because of a handicap or some other reason, I would prefer that people showed up to address the trustees. If you want to send us email comments, you can do that any day of the week. And if it's so specific questions, such as a question about the false alarm fees that were collected, I think it would be more effective to send that during the business day when that information was, more readily available and could be researched, rather than 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. So in the future, when we're allowed to return to regular meetings, I would prefer people showed up for citizens address. To those watching at home, I miss having a room full of people, because I love the interaction and the criticism and the compliments and all of that. And that's part of a public meeting. So those are my comments. I don't know if Raj had any.
I'm really the proponent of the meetings address, citizens address. We initiated that last year, 5 minutes, because it created very meaningful meetings, and other people have opportunity to talk, and still we continue our business, the trustee, township business, in a timely fashion. So maybe when we open up, the people can come to address the meeting. We would definitely like to address the timing issue. Secondly, also some of the questions they need, where we need the accurate result information, I would strongly encourage them to probably put a mailbox, some box there, like Friday evening, drop it out what type of exact information we need. So our administrator have a time, at least 2 days, to prepare, answer these questions. Like you said earlier, he has some other numbers, information during the nighttime. We don't have handy that information. So some of the information is very critical they ask for, but I will encourage them to drop it off in the mailbox by Friday so we can answer them the trustee meetings.
So to be clear, what is the direction from the board? How would you like to handle citizen address at the next meeting? If
we're allowed to have people in the room and go back to our normal meetings, I would I'm one of the three. I would prefer that we went back to the traditional historical way of speaking at the public podium during a public meeting.
Yes, and so what's limiting us right now is the governor's restriction on mass gatherings of 10 or more people. So when the governor, our sense is that when the governor lifts that restriction or moves it to 50 or 100 or whatever he's going to move it to, that's the time when we can have an audience here to participate. So if the governor has not increased that number, would you like to take citizen comment via email, or would you like them to do as we did today and show up and speak the way we did today?
I thought today went pretty smooth, but we only had one show up for the public hearing and one show up for citizens address. To those who can't see it on TV, we took half the chairs out of the room, and we are ready to have an audience here. I'm looking, I see 4, 8, 12, 16, about 30 or so chairs set up that are unoccupied because we're not allowed to fill them at this point. So in my opinion, for the next meeting, until the governor changes to allow the sensible thing, which is to allow us to go back to having our meetings, I think we should still take them by email. Have we had any zoning meetings? How has that been handled?
We have not until this month. This month will be the first month that we go back to zoning meetings, and they will be handled in the same way that
With the line going out into the rotunda?
yes, same way that we did tonight.
So let me add that I was advocating for the emails, but I'm also, I'd like the fact that people can show up here. I don't know if we do a hybrid for the next.
Okay.
I think it's important that folks understand that they can come to the meeting and do the questions like they did today.
I agree, Matt. That's
Okay.
because you can look at the trustees and the
Right.
administrator, and that's different than having one of us read an email that, may or may not be in the voice inflection that was intended. And I enjoy the passion of our citizens as they address us. So we really need to get back to being allowed to have regular public meetings as soon as possible.
So is that going to be very confusing to the fact that the next meeting is going to be the hybrid mix, if we agree on that? Is that?
No, I think that we'll just make it clear in our communication on Circle and on the website that citizen comment at the next meeting will be accepted via email and in person.
Okay.
But the in person will likely have the same setup. So there will be a check-in at the front. You'll be asked questions about whether or not you have a dry cough and shortness of breath. You'll have your temperature taken, and then once you pass that health screening, then you'll be invited into the rotunda to the quote unquote on deck circle, and then invited one at a time in to give comment here.
And I appreciate you throwing in a baseball term because I miss it.
Me too.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is trustees report. Matt or Raj, would you like to go first?
Let Matt go.
Okay, and Matt.
All right. All right. So I'm not going to give a traditional trustee report today. I just think with the things going on in the country, it's important to recognize what's going on and some of the feelings that that folks have had, because I've had the same thing. I watched that 8-minute and 42-second, I think it was, of Mr. Lloyd being, in my opinion, murdered on the streets of Minneapolis, and it was pretty striking to see. But as I watched it, I have a sister that's a police officer. I hold the police in very high regard. I felt almost like disloyal watching it and saying, I can't believe this guy did that. And I think that a lot of other folks maybe have those same feelings. And I go back to, we just had Officer Kaya Grant, which was just laid to rest. And, our own Dale Woods, and the other one that really hit me was officer for the Cincinnati CPD, Sonny Kim. Just a brief story about this. Sonny Kim is Korean, and he lives, I think, in Loveland or Miami Township. My sister's adopted. She's Korean. She's a police officer in Miami Township. My mom was at a part-time job where she grades papers for testing services, and somebody said, oh my gosh, there was a Korean police officer killed today from Miami Township. And it was just unbelievable. I mean, it took us, like, the emotional response to that from, at this point, I was a 72-year-old woman. It was just incredible. So I'm watching the George Lloyd thing, and I'm thinking what this officer did was wrong. And I'm watching the poor rookie who's on his fourth day on the job. And he says, I think we ought to let up on this guy. That to have the courage to actually do that, he's being charged too. His life is too. And I thought about how we approach things in this country, and oftentimes we have a binary reaction. It's yes or no. It's black or white. You know, it's life is not that way. Life is not a binary reaction. And I guess my point is that you can absolutely hate what was done to Mr. Lloyd and still be pro-police at the same time, because there aren't 1,000 examples of what happened to Mr. Lloyd. There aren't 1,000 of those officers out there. But at the same time, you can still push to make things better, push for reform. And one of the speeches I usually talk about in my American government class, we do a section on speeches, is RFK's speech the night that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And this speech was given in Indianapolis, right down the road. And it's a little bit ironic because RFK, of course, was assassinated, I guess, be 52 years ago, I think Friday or Saturday was the date. And I just wanted to kind of close my trustee report with just a section of that. And as we think about what all this means going forward, and it means something, because we got a lot of people out on the streets that are protesting. We have a lot of people out on the streets that are doing other things than protesting, and we have a lot of our first responders that feel like they're under siege as well. And all this isn't America. It's not right. It's not fair. So these are the words of RFK. We have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand, to get beyond or go beyond these rather difficult times. My favorite poem, my favorite poet was Aeschylus, and he once wrote, even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God. What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion towards one another, and a feeling of justice towards those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be black. We can do well in this country. We will have difficult times. We've had difficult times in the past, and we'll have difficult times in the future. It's not the end of violence. It's not the end of lawlessness, and it's not the end of disorder. But the vast majority of white people and the vast majority of black people in this country want to live together, want to improve the quality of our life, and want justice for all human beings that abide in our land. Let's dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of man and make gentle the life of this world. Let us dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and for our people. See you in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That's very nice. Raj, did you have a trustee report?
Sure. Thanks, Dan. I want to say our heart, our sympathy, our condolence goes to the family of Mr. George Floyd. It's a very tragic things happen in our country. What we see is a lot of things going on in our country, a lot of protests going on, bring a unity among people. What we see in our township, I took a time the last two weekends, drive around, look at the businesses, the weekends, the nights, midnight, drive around many times. Then I constantly kept in touch with our chief, Mark Denny, and also our administrator, Jeff Mills. What type of measures are we taking to protect our Colerain citizens, our people? But they're doing an amazing job. Mark Denny says the last weekend we had about 100 police officers on standby. But it's not that. I personally saw our Colerain Police Department patrolling like crazy in the nighttime. They're so tired, but yet they are very prepared. What other things I also saw? The people, the families in the evening, like in the Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, people all bring their families, going to the restaurants, going to the shopping. You know, it's amazing. They can even bring the children to places like that. What it tells me, they feel very safe. They feel very safe. Come out, go out to eat, go shopping with their family. That's it. That made me feel so good because we have giving them that type of protection, safety. I really admire our police officers. They were patrolling like crazy. I never seen, and they're tired, but yet they're vigorous in patrolling our people. It really makes me kind of, when I saw them, got a goosebump, man. Now I can go home and go to sleep because now township in their hands. So they were protecting us, protecting our community. That is a remarkable job. Also, our firefighters, fire responders, they were doing a great job during these COVID-19 situations. They're working tirelessly. We are so lucky that none of our first responders got sick with this virus. That's number one report I'd like to give. I want to assure our Colerain Township residents we will continue to provide that safety. Okay. Second good news I also tell you, I know you guys I've been telling you many meetings about that sidewalk on the north gate, the northwest school to the Stubble Road. The ODOT is backing up that, or really supporting us on that sidewalk plan. So they submitted their proposals to the board. It will go to the board. They'll decide for the funding for the program. So we keep praying and keep the finger crossed. So that's another thing. I also want to got some good news. I would say this week I'm meeting one of the possible donors who can who possible donor who may help us to build a fire station. I'm going to meet with them. Again, I just keenly praying the things all will happen. That's my report, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raj. I've heard a lot of comments here this evening from the other trustees, and I'll start with Raj's last one about a fire station and about sidewalks and about other things that we need to do to improve this township. And I want people to know that just like Chief Denny getting the grant to back up some of our expenses for COVID, I can assure you that every department head in this township has heard the clear message from the Board of Trustees to look for alternative sources of funding for these things. And that's what we're doing. And I know you've been working on finding some public-private partnership to work on some of our capital needs for our fire department, and we get it. And this Board of Trustees is trying to be as efficient as possible to get improvements in the township, whether it's a sidewalk or anything else, and make it a better, nicer place to live. As you've heard me state over the last few meetings, and I'm glad things are opening up, but there was a several month period there where there was nothing to do recreationally except walk, walk, walk. And I have walked many subdivisions and our parks and, parks outside of Colerain Township, whether it was Miami Whitewater or the trail around Lunken Airport, which is a wonderful 5-mile hike that goes completely around the perimeter of the runway. And I've walked and I've seen our sidewalks in some of my own neighborhood, in fact, that need to be improved, that are trip hazards, that maybe have been raised up over the years by some of the soft pear trees that the previous board let them plant 40 years ago. And we're not trying to make things difficult. We're trying to improve the ability to walk down the street and stay out of traffic. And things need to be fixed. We're doing everything we can to help people. The comment from our speaker about getting people working cooperatively to help out, I fully support that. And I have made a donation to people working cooperatively personally a few months ago. And if anybody wants to make donations and feels charitable, I'd certainly encourage that. And we have some wonderful folks right here in the community that are affiliated with that organization, and we can certainly get you in touch with them, whether you want to donate financially or donate your efforts or expertise to help, not just with sidewalks, but with any problems that people are having with their homes. And I know people don't have money right now to do a lot of things. Specific to the comment about the sidewalks down in front of the Duke Energy Colerain Operations Center, which is just coming along and it's looking great. The sidewalks down there, I believe we have had several pedestrian injuries and fatalities in that area, and you were able to obtain a state grant to get those sidewalks down there?
It was actually a grant through the OKI. Yeah, it was through OKI, and so those are federal pass-through dollars.
Right, and that is why there are sidewalks going in down by Duke. There was almost a worn trail in the grass right a foot or two off the edge of pavement down there that people have walked on. And Colerain Avenue being such a busy street, we're just trying to get people back from the edge of pavement. Fatalities are terrible, and what would be worse is if this board of trustees didn't address that issue. And you know, in a residential cul-de-sac, we want people to be able to walk back there too. But specific to the question about those sidewalks, that was the OKI grant, did you say, or ODOT grant?
Yes. So there's
Okay.
actually, and there's also a state grant that's just south of there, from Banning south to Burnside.
Right, and our goal here is to try to make the township a little bit of a better place to live. And it's nothing that's going to happen overnight, but we're just trying to get things fixed up the best way we know. And going back to one of the citizen comments, I will forward this to Mark to find out about the false alarm fees and what the collection's been on those, and see if we can get an answer for that. With that, I would just ask my fellow citizens to hang in there. I know it's been a lot of economic difficulty. A lot of people have lost jobs or temporarily lost employment. And may God bless you and help you find something new as quickly as possible. I think we're going to see a rebound because the economy was structurally strong before this happened. And the only thing that happened is the COVID shutdown. I don't think there was some other structural issue that caused the economy to take a dive and drive up unemployment so quickly. I believe there were federal numbers released just a few days ago that they had predicted 9 million unemployment new claims for May, and it ended up being 2.3 million. So we are just really getting a lot of information for all of us to process. So hang in there, everybody. Anything the township can do to help your business or whatever, please let us know. We will do anything. I know we temporarily suspended some of our zoning requirements, anything to help get business going again. And with that, we'll move on to the next item, which is new business. Jeff Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. The first item of new business comes from the fire department and will be presented by Chief Frank Cook.
The one item that I have for you to give consideration to this evening is a motion to authorize the department to contract with Springfield Township for services, emergency medical first response services to West College Hill. So recommend adoption of a motion to approve the contractual agreement to provide emergency medical first response to West College Hill neighborhood of Springfield Township. The agreement between Springfield Township and Colerain Township is for the provision of first responder emergency medical services into Springfield Township's West College Hill neighborhood from Station 26 on West Galbraith Road. This will be conducted for a trial period to run from July 1st through December 31st of this year. The department will be compensated in the amount of $350 per emergency medical first response incident into the West College Hill neighborhood. I will go on further to say, I know there's been some concerns expressed over this contract. Station 26 is one of our busiest fire stations here in the township, one of the busiest in the county. But the way this contract is formulated, our response criteria would be very narrow. There's only about a half dozen types of runs that we will respond over there to. So the concept is very similar to what we do in West or up in Pleasant Run Farms, with the exception that, again, we've got a very narrow criteria of the types of runs that we'll respond to, and those will be the advanced life support type runs, heart attacks, non-breathers, altered level of consciousness, shootings, drownings, those types of runs, and they're clearly specified in the agreement as to the types of runs we'll respond on. The other concern that I know that's been expressed is the amount that's been appropriated for this agreement. Springfield Township has appropriated $10,000 for this, which equates to about 28 runs. And those 28 runs, you know, there are not a great deal of runs into that area right now, and I don't anticipate us exceeding that 28 or even approaching that 28 run figure. In the event that we do hit the 28 incident figure, then there's two options there. We terminate the agreement at that time. Again, keeping in mind this is just a trial period and a trial agreement, or there's additional funding appropriated to support the agreement.
And I will motion that we authorize the Department of Fire and EMS Services contract for emergency medical first response as you have described.
I'll second, so it makes it to the floor.
Thank you. And I do believe that I had talked to you, or I had talked to Jeff Mills about I believe they've appropriated $10,000 for this, and it's for a very narrow set of circumstances such as heart attacks and that. And I think that the concept of this particular shared service is a good one, and it does have an end date to it, and it would help us to, especially as we consider some major capital improvements for our fire department. I think it would be good to have this information as the next couple years roll by and we see about replacing, you know, a fire station or two. I would like to have this information before we decided where one might be, whether it's on the same spot or down the road. I think it's good information to have. So, are there any other comments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I have several concerns on this. First, the fact that it's Station 26 is a major concern. The second thing involves, I guess, Springfield Township. So I took a look at Mount Healthy approached them at the beginning of the year and wanted Springfield Township to pick up their fire, and I think they may have a levy on the ballot this fall. And they gave them Springfield Township gave Mount Healthy a quote of, I can see my notes here, $1.5 million a year to do their runs. That works out to $1,200 a run. I'm a little kind of, you know, what Springfield Township, are they cutting off portions that Springfield has, you know, unique in that it's kind of geographically a mess. They're not kind of all connected, and it's the same issue that I had with the West Kemper one, is that, you know, they want to give us $350, but they want to charge Mount Healthy $1,200. And in this, the other part that I believe I read right is that we don't get billing, right?
Well, understand this program or this trial is very similar to what we do in Pleasant Run Farms.
Mm-hmm.
So the overall goal is to get emergency medical help there in the most timely fashion. They would respond to the West College Hill neighborhood from their station on Winton Road. So you're looking at probably 8 to 10 minutes, maybe even longer, depending on how heavy traffic is, for them to get somebody there. And Station 26, you know, is probably the closest, and we can get there in an appropriate amount of time to render aid. Is why we were selected. You know, there's some difficulties with North College Hill and being able to do it, and even Cincinnati. You know, Engine 51 there in College Hill on Hamilton Avenue. You know, there's issues there as far as delayed response, even under the technological communication advances that we have today. There's a delay in in notifications and things like that with Cincinnati. And
Wouldn't they actually be closer? But you're saying that they're
mileage wise, yes,
Okay.
They would be. But you know, the program in Pleasant Run Farms has been so successful. You know, it will continue to demonstrate success in the West College Hill area. Again, this is just a trial.
Mhm.
You know, I guess I can't emphasize that enough to see how this first response will work and what the data will say once it's all said and done. I mean, you know, who knows? You know, they could go back to the table and say, you know, Engine 51 is closer. But you know, as far as the $350 is concerned, again, if I was to charge them using the FEMA schedule, using our labor, you know, and I comparatively, you know, use Pleasant Run Farms. Our average working time in Pleasant Run Farms is only about 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And so, you know, if I was to do the math, and it's about $80 an hour for an engine, and what the labor cost is, you know, I hate to be put on the point or put in, but you know, it's only about $175.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's very advantageous for us.
Does West Kemper, don't we get billing on the West Kemper deal? Or
You know, we have a contractual agreement, an annual payment that we receive from Springfield Township.
so does Springfield Township bill?
Yes.
Okay.
But they're the ones that's providing the transport, not us.
Okay.
We're showing up with an engine company and rendering immediate or first aid to the victim.
Okay. All right. No,
All right, Matt, are you done? I got a comments, Dan. You know, time and time again, I said all the time in the meeting, Colerain Fire Department, one of the finest department in the country. They're outstanding. Everybody knows that. The area township knows that. The fire department knows that. Now, Springfield Township, I'm happy because that we're trying to help the people in that West College Hill, or which is part of Springfield Township's fire district. My question comes, we already helping Pleasant Run. You know, we argue that, okay, saving life is very important. I completely agree with you, Chief. The timely fashion will save life. Then again, as a Colerain Township Fire Department, we also have an obligation to serve our people, our residents. Okay, now I got a few things I want to mention. When we responding that West College Hill thing, we are losing at the same time. Something happened around Colerain Township that Station 26 is already engaged, and we are missing the service. We would, in essence, other department will come, other station will come and help in the timely fashions, but we also going to have some kind of conflict. My question also, you know, on the $350 we're going to get for the run, you know, if you read the resolution Article 5 says Colerain Township, Colerain Fire Department must carry all the liability insurance, every liabilities, you know, like if you're on the run, something happened, then, you know, you have to carry, Colerain Township must buy the liability insurance associated with, I don't know how many millions, okay? Because we serving why don't they, Springfield Township buy the insurance? Our Colerain residents paying the insurance for this servicing Springfield Township. Now, on the same token, we're going to ask people levy. But what are the levy? We're going to ask Colerain Township people, residents, to support the levy, to support our fire department. Now, people are going to think, you know what, we already responding to other Springfield Townships. okay? Weren't you going to ask the people in Springfield Township too to support some other levies? That's hypothetical question. This has become concern for me that this could be your trial things you're doing, Chief, but in the essence, we had to wait. We got to wait what's going to happen in this levy. We're going to put it on the ballot. It's very critical. How this is going to affect the people's mind. Hey, we paying for the Colerain Township, and he's going around helping other townships. Is that logical? Is it reasonable? These are the questions people have in their mind. But again, I commend you for helping the people there because you got a fine crew there. But something that we should think, the cost in the future. What's cost associated with buying the insurance, the liability? Completely, the Springfield Township completely throw us out of their pocket. Okay, this is your baby. You go and buy the insurance, or you come and help us. These are things really, boil my mind. We need to think about this. Okay, that's it, Dan.
As I recall, we discussed the farms contract. We discussed this same very topic, and whether it's through this contractual agreement or whether it's in the form of automatic mutual aid or traditional mutual aid or regular mutual aid, we'll run into these same issues about insurance. If our equipment is damaged or if we have an employee that's damaged. But I guess one way to look at it is, we too are a recipient on a regular basis of mutual aid. We receive aid again on a regular basis from Springfield Township, from Forest Park, from Green Township, Ross Township. The aid that we do receive is very critical to the efficient and effective operation to our incident scene. I'll go back to December of 2019 when we had the fire down at the Silo XL. I tell you, if it wasn't for the mutual aid, the first two arriving fire departments were actually mutual aid department. And I can't speak highly enough on the job that they did in their initial actions in helping to contain that fire until that we can get water supply established and get enough resources in there to control that fire. But I guess to the point is, we receive aid on a regular basis, and any damaging event could happen, whether it's through the contractual areas or whether it's through the use of automatic aid or regular mutual aid.
Could I just chime in here and just mention that?
Can I say something? Someone wants to talk? That's one thing about Zoom. Chief, I support that mutual aid. I encourage you to continue to support your neighbors, support people. I saw that the outpouring of this mutual aid at the big fire near I-74. Everybody came. We had to survive. Without mutual aid, we cannot survive, or any other place for. I like to, I really admire you to doing this mutual aid and helping people, saving lives. I continue to do that. But only thing, I'm not into this contract, writing a contract and binding us a lot of legal issues. And you completely take Springfield Township off the hook, especially which I mentioned earlier about the insurance, the liabilities, workman comp for our guys. Those are the issues that I think about that. But I encourage you to do this mutual aid. If the Springfield Township needs help when they're in trouble, send our people, help them. But going as a contract, I really, it kind of backs me up. Okay.
Two or three points I just wanted to share with you as hopefully to help you consider this item. One is Rush, your point about insurance. We carry liability insurance and have to pay workers' comp anyway. So there would be no additional cost for insurance as a result of this contract. So hopefully that helps you make your decision. The second thing is, if we do mutual aid as is suggest here, we don't get paid for it. And so this is an opportunity to capture some of the costs that are lost as we give mutual aid. So we're actually getting $350 per run, whereas if we were to just use mutual aid, we'd get zero revenue. And then that brings me to the final point for your consideration, which is, we are trying desperately to figure out ways to meet the needs of the fire department that were identified in their needs assessment without adding millage to a levy, right? So we have the board has asked us to certify 3 mills. That does not give us the revenue that is needed to do any sort of capital purchases over the next 5 years. So that means, no new water tanker that are 1987 vintage, no new firehouses from that levy. So what we're trying to do is find revenue that doesn't come out of the pockets of our taxpayers, and we're trying desperately to do that. This is one of the ways that we are looking at finding non-tax revenue to support fire operations. So those are just 3 thoughts as you consider it.
Jeff, I see your point, but what we're seeing in this contract, we are, what we're serving, you're adding more service. Through the contract, you're adding more service. I think what I learned, Springfield Township, their run is about $900 or something like that. But they're giving us only about $350, And in other township, they're collecting more money. Like Matt mentioned earlier, they serve the other area, but Springfield Township getting more money when they serve. These are the issues. We can table this, wait till how the levy goes. We'll go from there. I think the timing is not right. Now you're asking people for the millage, pay for the levy for the Colerain Township. Now you're expanding the survey to other service. Even the money you get in the fragment, I don't think so. It's not. I may have to do more research. Either you can wait instead of starting this trial period, you continue to do that mutual aid, helping this Springfield Township, helping the people in the neighborhood, but writing the binding contract, it's not a good idea.
Another option might be to negotiate a higher detail price, if that's a concern.
I'd like to make, to answer some of the comments. Every time we take somebody to the hospital, we are leaving the township. If you send your people down to pick up a patient and take them down to university, and our guys and girls are down there unloading them, that's an opportunity for a workman's comp claim. My point is as far as the added insurance cost or added workman's comp exposure, I don't see it. We're already paying those fees, and every time, we don't have a major hospital here in Colerain Township, so every single run is leaving the township. So to answer that concern, we're leaving the township every time we go somewhere, and we're in the middle of a big picture discussion about if we replace a firehouse or two. And what I heard from the other trustees, it would either be Dunlap or Station 26. And it's, as far as myself, I would like to go ahead and do these little 28 test runs that we would be getting paid for, and just see if that station gets replaced in a year or 2 or 3. Is it in the right spot? Should it be over closer to Colerain Avenue? Should it be on the other side of Colerain Avenue? I think this would be great data to have. And for 28 runs that ultimately we're going to be paid $10,000 for them. And my charge to you and the other department heads was go find some money somewhere else. And you've answered the call with this contract, and I'm willing to support it, to just find out. It's just 28 runs, and I don't want to take any service away from our citizens right here in Colerain, but we could get called over there right now for mutual aid and not get paid for it. You could get that call 5 minutes from now. And at least with this contract, we would get paid for it. And so that's why I intend to support it. We've had a robust debate on this. If neither of the, it's been motioned and put on the floor and seconded and put on the floor for that. If the other trustees don't have any comments, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I'd be willing to ask Jeff Baker to call the vote unless you have any other comments, Matt or Raj.
No, none for me.
Any other comments, Raj?
No.
So the motion to authorize the Department of Fire and EMS Services contract for this particular emergency medical response has been robustly debated, and it's on the floor for approval. And I would ask Jeff Baker to call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
I'm voting against the binding contract. No.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Waller,
No.
Motion fails. Next item.
Very good.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. The next item comes from the Department of Planning and Zoning. These two items will be presented by Director of Planning and Zoning, Mr. Mike Iona.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Good evening, board members. So the resolution before you tonight is a first reading to adopt Connect Colerain. It's a plan for sidewalk and pedestrian connectivity in Colerain Township. The goal of the proposed plan is to establish and maintain a comprehensive and continuous sidewalk system in Colerain Township that connects neighborhoods and destinations to one another. The vision the plan sets forth is a sidewalk system that provides both service and support to residents, workers, and businesses. In 1993, the Board of Trustees in Colerain Township adopted their first sidewalk plan, which stated that sidewalks should be installed on both sides of the street in Colerain Township prior to the approval of any subdivision or record plat. And what that is that's probably one of the shortest plans I've ever seen. It's about one sentence long, but it had a lot of substance to it. And what it did is it really started the first sidewalk requirement in Colerain Township in 1993. That plan was expanded upon, and in 2006, the Board of Trustees voted to supplement and amend that original plan to allow a developer to make a request to the Board of Trustees with respect to a waiver from or relief from these requirements. That would be determined by the Township Trustees on a case-by-case basis. So that was where the basically the foundation of our sidewalk waiver program. In 2016, the cost of the waiver was then increased to $75 per lineal foot of road frontage per property. The proposed plan before you this evening is Connect Colerain, and it's the next logical step to creating a more comprehensive and holistic approach to sidewalk and pedestrian connectivity in Colerain Township. Whereas our current plans, from 1993 and subsequent plans are merely just a few sentences, although powerful, this plan really establishes a vision for the future of sidewalk connectivity in Colerain Township. And the components of the plan include an inventory and analysis of the existing system. It looks at the impact of what these system gaps are. If you all leaf through the plan, there's a lot of great word content, but I think some of the most powerful parts of the plan are some of the images where you see a number of students who are walking along different major thoroughfares throughout the township. And they're either walking, in the drainage ditches on the side of the road or on the shoulder and to and from school. And these are not 25-mile-per-hour residential streets. They're major thoroughfares where cars are supposed to be going 35 miles per hour, and oftentimes they're going much faster than that. The other components of the plan include a public input component where township staff, and this is prior to my time, but township staff went out and they conducted a robust survey where they sent surveys out. They collected responses digitally as well as in person at a couple of multiple different events. So what the plan really does is it prioritizes new sidewalk connections and where those should be, and it makes recommendations for maintenance and sidewalk design, as well as recommendations for implementation and funding. In a nutshell, this plan is going to guide where township resources Most specifically, the dollars that we currently receive from the Sidewalk Waiver Fund to ensure that we're putting them in the right places where they're going to have the most impact for residents, business owners, and even the visitors and patrons of our township. Lastly, Connect Colerain is a digital plan. Digital plans are web-based plans, meaning that are housed by digital means, typically online. Connect Colerain will be located on the Colerain Township homepage, colerain.org. And the benefits of these types of plans are numerous, which include being accessible. Unlike the paper copy plans that I've seen throughout my career that just sit on a shelf in a planning department, these plans can be accessed by anyone, anytime, anywhere through their phone, a digital device, the internet, their home computer, a library, etc. And if you're having a conversation with a developer, a resident, a business owner about the plan, it's as easy as giving them the website, and you can have a very productive phone conversation, even over the phone. The plan's also very innovative and interactive. Many parts of the plan you can actually click and dial in on maps. They're interactive maps. You can dial in, get more information, pan throughout the maps, and find more information. And then finally, they're very visual. There's a lot of maps, a lot of content. And the way that it's presented is as if it's a story. It's called a story map, the way that the plan is organized. So based on the content of the plan, the effort that was put forward, I'm recommending that the board approve a first reading of the plan tonight, with the second reading occurring at the June 23rd, 2020 Board of Trustees meeting.
Mike, you don't want them to vote on this tonight, do you?
Right.
That's the plan, the resolution I saw. The resolution I saw waived the second reading. Does it still say that?
We're intending to have 2 readings, Ms. Barbier. So there's no vote tonight. It'll be brought back to the board on the 23rd.
Right.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question, and they 1, 2, 3. On the 4th paragraph of the resolution, whereas the Board of Trustees amend the resolution 13-06 on August 9, 2016 via resolution 40-16. What is the 14-16?
Where is it?
Okay, what the resolution talks about, 40-16. If we, 4th paragraph.
Yes, sir. So 40-16 changes the 80% requirement, and it changes the requirement for
When the resolution was made, I don't know again. That 40-16.
2016. August 9th.
That's not August 9th, 2016, right?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir. That was in August 9th, 2016.
Okay, that's before me and Dane got it. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Iona. We'll move on to the next one.
I do have one last item, and that is a resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement of the following properties: 2845 Brampton, 3142 Deschler, 10876 Gosling, 3616 Hanley, 8137 Hollybrook, 2909 Jack Frost, 3483 Niagara, 2517 Ontario, 2526 Ontario, 2807 Sheldon, and 2829 Wheatfield.
I would motion that we declare those properties as read by our zoning director as a nuisance and ordering abatement.
I will second that motion.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, Jeff Mills.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Iona.
Mr. Iona. Sorry.
Very good. The next items are in the administration department. The first one in new business is a motion to authorize the township administrator to execute a letter of arrangement with the Ohio Auditor of State for the purpose of conducting audit services for the years 2018 and 2019 for a fee not to exceed $20,000. So every 2 years, the auditor comes down and takes a look at our records and we must pay him for that service.
I will motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute letter of arrangement with Ohio Auditor of State for the purpose of conducting audit services for the years 2018 and 2019 for a fee not to exceed $20,000.
I second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Waller,
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to set a public hearing for June 23rd for the, to set the public hearing on June 23rd, 2020 for the 2021 tax budget.
I will motion to set the public hearing on June 23rd, 2020 for the 2020-2021 tax budget.
I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion?
None.
None.
Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to set a public hearing on the establishment of a TIF district on parcel 510-0062-0230 for July 14th, 2020. Recommendation is to approve.
I will move. I will motion to set a public hearing on the establishment of TIF district on parcel 0510-0062-0230 for July 14th, 2020.
I will second that. It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
None.
None.
None. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Anthem for health insurance for the 2020-2021 plan year. I am so pleased to share with you all that we were able to negotiate a renewal with Anthem for health insurance that represents a 9.75 reduction in percent reduction in our medical health care costs. That is a huge deal. Each year, the two biggest unknowns for us are what is our health insurance going to be and what's the comm center going to cost us. And those are difficult to budget and make big changes in our budget. This is a big deal. We've come off of several years of hefty double-digit increases in the past. And so to have a reduction is a huge deal, not just to our employees, but to the department budgets. So the recommendation is to adopt such a motion to authorize me to execute that any and all documents related to the agreement with Anthem for the 2020-2021 plan year.
I would motion that we do such a thing.
I second it.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Sure.
Yeah, question for Mr. Barbieri. Larry?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So on this motion, I own stock in Anthem. Do I need to not vote on this?
Why don't you abstain? I don't think it's necessary, but just for the sake of being, careful, why don't you abstain?
All right, so I will be abstaining for the reason I own common stock in Anthem Health Insurance.
Okay, I have a question, Jeff. I see that your dental plan, 29.9% increase. Do you get chance to shop around like dental care plus other dental care insurance?
Absolutely. Yep. We shopped around and because of the loss ratio in our dental insurance, that was an increase across the board. So, and actually Jeff Weckbach has some more information for you.
We lost Raj here.
Yeah, it's coming back.
Yes. So Raj, to answer your question, our brokers went out and as they always do, they shake the trees and see what they can get back. They actually had declines from a number of carriers because how frequently our employees use the dental plan, which, shows that they like the benefit. The next closest renewal was a 50% increase. So unfortunately, 29.9% was the best we could do on dental. Right now, our use of the plan runs at about 130% of what we pay. So that's part of the reason that we're seeing such a big increase is that, our employees are using far more than they're paying in premium to Anthem. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Jeff.
Again, I would like to point out on a technical note, I believe those Zoom meetings need to be reset at 2 hours into the meeting, and that's why it'll reset?
No, it's just our projector. So the Zoom meeting is continuing, but the projector in this room has
Okay.
timed out.
All right, was there any other discussion concerning the motion to authorize the administrator to execute an agreement with Anthem for health insurance? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Abstain.
Motion carries. Next item, Jeff Mills.
Very good. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a motion to dissolve the Comprehensive Land Use Committee. The recommendation is to adopt such a motion. And the reason for that is the stated purpose of the Comprehensive Plan Land Use Committee is to advise the planning staff regarding land use policies for Colerain Township during the land use element of the comprehensive plan update. The committee met with staff on a number of occasions and have advised staff, having fulfilled their purpose, there is no need for the committee to continue. And so we recommend adoption of a motion to dissolve the land use committee.
I would motion to dissolve the Comprehensive Land Use Committee.
I'll second.
Been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
Next item, old business.
There is no old business this evening.
Next item, consent items.
Yes, sir. We have a number of items on the consent agenda. The first is a promotion in the Department of Fire and EMS. The recommendation is to approve all of these consent items. I'll just roll through them now. First is a recommendation to promote incumbent firefighter paramedic Mr. Riefenberger to lieutenant, which would fill a vacancy that will be created by the pending retirement of Captain Fortunsky effective June 26th. The annual salary for the firefighter paramedic Riefenberg's promotion, according to the CBA, is $83,067.00. That would be effective June 28th, 2020. There would be a 1-year probationary period, and firefighter paramedic Riefenberger was the second highest scoring candidate following a competitive process, a promotional process during July 2019. The next item on the consent agenda is another new hire in the Department of Fire and EMS. This would fill the vacancy that was created at the end of today by firefighter paramedic Matthew Drennen, whose last day is today. We recommend that Mr. Riemann, firefighter EMT Riemann, be hired at the CBA rate of $47,733 during the first full year of employment. That would be contingent upon the successful completion of all applicable pre-employment evaluations and procedures. His start date would be as soon as possible after June 14th, 2020, following compliance with the aforementioned conditions and a 1-year probationary period. Next item on the consent agenda is a new hire also in the Department of Fire and EMS. This is a promotion and hiring of firefighter paramedic Walter to fill the full-time vacancy that would be created with the pending retirement of Captain Fortunsky. So you're seeing this cascading effect happen here with the retirement of a captain. According to the CBA, we recommend that Mr. Walter be brought on at the firefighter 2 level of $54,762 during the first full year of employment. That would be contingent upon the successful completion of all pre-employment evaluations and procedures. This entry-level salary is recommended and supported by his previous full-time years of experience at a municipal fire department as a firefighter paramedic. The contract does allow for laterals to be hired in this way. His start date would be effective as soon as possible after Sunday, June 28th, 2020, following compliance with the aforementioned conditions and a 1-year probationary period. Next item on the consent agenda is a new hire in the Department of Fire and EMS for seasonal hydrant maintenance worker. Recommend the hire of Brandon Barnes and Jaden Chappell. The wage for this job is $11 per hour for no more than 30 hours per week throughout the season. It is contingent upon board approval. If you approve this evening, they will be able to begin work on June 14th, 2020.
And that is, you've mentioned 2 names.
2 names, Brandon
Okay.
Barnes and Jaden Chappell.
Okay.
Next item is a new hire in the Public Services Department. This is a seasonal maintenance worker, Edom Nevis. The wage for this job as a seasonal maintenance worker is $11 per hour for 40 hours a week throughout the season. contingent upon board approval, he would be eligible to begin work June 11th, 2020. Next item on the agenda is a new hire in public services. This is a seasonal camp counselor. Seasonally, the Parks and Recreation Department hires 7 camp staff to assist with the free summer camp program. This year, although summer camp has been canceled, there will still be recreational programming that requires support and supervision. This includes virtual online summer programming, small pop-up events, neighborhood challenges, township behind the scenes, and more. Additionally, seasonal staff will assist with movies and concerts if they're able to resume this summer. The position was posted. We received applications and recommend the hiring of Brianne Robbins. The wage for this job is $10 per hour for 15 to 20 hours per week throughout the season. Contingent upon your approval here tonight, she'd be able to begin work June 11th, 2020. Next item is a donation to the police department in the amount of $100. That is from resident Bill Ostman in appreciation for police officers conducting vacation checks. Next item is a donation to the police department in the amount of $24.25. That is from an anonymous resident. Next item is a donation acceptance of a donation to the police department in the amount of $200. This is a donation from Clippard Industries in the form of a $200 La Rosa's gift card to be used to purchase lunches for police officers. The next item is a donation to the Department of Fire and EMS in the amount of $1,000. Colerain Township Department of Fire and EMS is grateful for a $1,000 donation from the Northwest Women's Club for use in the education and training of Colerain Township Fire and EMS personnel and emergency medical services. And finally, we have a contract with a personal services agreement with Hannah McCaig, who is a co-op student from The Ohio State University for communication services. One of the initiatives this year was to create better connections with our residents and stakeholders. And Ms. McCaig will be producing a podcast series. The compensation for this co-op position is $15 an hour. The term would be beginning tomorrow through September 30th. And she would produce a series of podcasts that would help residents better understand how government works in Colerain Township and specific issues that arise that we do on a daily basis. So the recommendation is to approve all the items on the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the items as discussed by Mr. Mills, the items on the consent agenda.
I second it. Okay.
Motion by Matt Wallert and seconded by Raj. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank the Northwest Women's Club and Ms. Streckfuss, the treasurer, Clippard Industries, Bill Osman, and Anonymous for their donations. Thank you very much. They are appreciated. Thank you.
Same thing, Dan. We want to thank all the donors, the Northwest Women's Club and Clifford Company, all these donors supporting our township. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Jeff Mills, I would like to comment that a lot of friends and family and fellow citizens have really enjoyed the movies and the different things that have been at Colerain Park. And we haven't had those this year, and we're not sure if we're going to be able to. But I certainly, as soon as we get the okay, which I hope is very soon, I'm glad to have this person in place, the camp counselor, who's being paid a very nominal amount of $10 an hour, have something ready to go if we can do this, because it's just, we need to do some community thing. We're not having our fireworks for July 4th. We're not having so many other things. I think it's a very reasonable price to just have some type of event for our township residents. And just lately with the restaurants and different things opening up, and the church I attend, you could finally go in there this past weekend. It's just great to see some people, and I think that's going to lift a lot of spirits if we can get just a couple events going this summer. So thank you for getting that together. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for the vote to approve the consent items.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye.
Thank you, board.
Thank
That's
you.
all
And
the business.
the next item is fiscal office report.
Thank you, Board. All I have tonight is just a brief update on a couple things. Public records request. We're at, since April 1st, we're at 112. We have fulfilled 62. So we're working very hard to keep on top of those requests to get caught up. I'd like to have them all finished, but we'll get there soon enough. We're going to be working on every meeting I have a spreadsheet that we keep that, tells us a few things. What the public records request number is, what the date corresponding to that public records request is, who that request came from, and then obviously what the request is specifically. Some things that we're going to work on adding to this, just in, for the sense of full transparency, is cost associated with each public records request. And that will be, a formula that we're going to have to work out for each person involved, what their pay scale is and things of that nature, to determine, just to give the residents of Colerain an idea of what is spent filling public records requests. And I just think that it would be an interesting item, and that one that I think people would like to see. And I think that we'll try to do is to add that information to this spreadsheet, and then either read that spreadsheet into the record, or at least make it available on the minutes or online somewhere or another, so people can see exactly what the cost is. So might take us a while to do that, because we do have a lot of other things going on too with the number of requests that we've received. But that's all I had for tonight, unless you guys have some questions for me.
Jeff, I just comment, you're 2 months into your term, and it's probably been one of the most interesting 2 months for a clerk or a fiscal officer, and someday you'll get a room full of people to cheer you on and criticize you and everything in between. So
I look forward to that. It was nice to actually have people, even though there weren't many, but seeing any citizen come in this evening was nice to see. It's a start. Got to start somewhere. So I look forward to those days. I might stay sitting here, but anyway, we'll see.
Hey, Jeff, that's a great response, that you can respond 62 reports and doing your job, learning your job, and try to understand the culture of the township, understand the employees, work with you, who they are. But it's still a great job you did for responding that many public requests.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
thank you. And the
There's no report from the fiscal officer pro tem.
and yes, blessings come in all sizes, and that would be one of them. So, I don't believe we need an executive session this evening. So I would ask for a motion for adjournment, having completed tonight's business.
Motion to adjourn.
And I will second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Jeff Baker, please call for a vote on adjournment.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
This meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees is adjourned at 9:12 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th. And thank you all for watching, and we hope to get you back in here soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.